The break-in at Peach's castle, and there's no word of the princess's whereabouts.
Likes to disembowel his victims.
You think I'm a...
I must declare martial law.
How many lives must this brawl consume?
I ran. It had been so long, I had forgotten what it had felt like.
In 2006, Time magazine named you the Person of the Year, as the social networking boom presented by platforms such as Wikipedia, MySpace, and YouTube had democratized mass communication. Easily accessible web video specifically had created a wave of hobbyists producing content for a mass audience with little to no budget and often a complete disregard for copyright. Riding this wave was the filmmaking duo of Zach Grafton and Matthew Mercer, with their web series, There Will Be Brawl. The premise was deliberately absurd. The happy-go-lucky world of Nintendo was twisted into an edgy neo-noir pastiche in the vein of Watchmen. What would have otherwise been a dime a dozen internet shock parody was instead elevated by the determination of the cast and crew who were willing to sacrifice their time, their money, their minds, and their bodies to complete There Will Be Brawl. In 2007, Nintendo was promoting the imminent release of Super Smash Bros. Brawl, the third installment of their platform fighting game series. On October 10th, Sega's Sonic the Hedgehog was announced as a playable character, possibly the most iconic announcement in the series' history, which Ars Technica compared to seeing the US and Russia make out after the Cold War. Meanwhile, on the GameFAQs forum, a user under the name Chaos Zero leaked that Mewtwo, a playable fighter from the previous installment Super Smash Bros. Melee, would not be included in the new roster, the first of several characters cut from the cast. These revelations were major upheavals for the dedicated fans in the online Smash Bros. Community, such as Zach Grafton, a student at the University of California. Grafton was studying English literature, intending to become a teacher, but would find his attention drawn to more unconventional projects. He had taught himself screenwriting in high school while working with filmmaker Christian Bretz on expanding Bretz's viral video How to Be Emo into a feature-length film. The filmmakers were expecting to complete the movie with a $1 to $5 million budget and had produced 2 concept trailers to attract investors, but the film never materialized. In August 2007, Grafton attended the annual gaming convention BlizzCon. As he was wandering the convention floor, he had a chance meeting with the up-and-coming voice actor Matthew Mercer.
But he was already like... Actually, no, I fucking totally remember the exact moment I met him the first time ever. It was BlizzCon, and I was just with some friends, like loitering about, trying to figure out what to do. And then suddenly someone was like, oh, Matt's here. There was a literal, like, gravitational orbit around this man I'd never met or seen. And he was just holding court so naturally. I was like, all right, whoever this guy is, everybody loves this guy. And he was great. He was just super charming and nice. And I don't even know if I like talked to him directly that time. And then I think at a party or something, might have been when I first interacted with him. He was a voice actor at that time, I believe, but like very small roles. He had like a web show, so this was like a billion years ago. This was unthinkably long ago. Like YouTube was like very new, and everybody in LA was like, we can do anything now. We can all be successful, we can all make money, we can all live off just creativity. And it was just a mad rush. And there were like all these meetups and like clubs and stuff that we would always go to. So I remember Matt was had some things that he just worked on for like fun. I was at this party and I was like, oh, there's Matt. He's doing the things. And I remember him from the BlizzCon. So we just started talking and we're like, we should grab lunch or whatever. And that was where it began. And then at that lunch, I was like, I pitched him 2 ideas. I think both genius. The first one was, it would be like a sketch we could film about the like Knights of the Round Table, but it was a porn set and like they were porn stars. And for some reason that was funny. Like for some reason it was like, yes, this is the idea. The only part of that I think is legitimately funny was like Merlin was gonna be like the porn director, like the skeezy porn director, you know? And that was it. I have no idea why we were even considering doing it. And then the second one was Brawl, or like a very old, the rough draft version of it, where it was sort of like an idea that I'd had the concept of, because I played Melee so much. Like my social circle back then, before I went to UCLA, like literally was 5 to 10 rotating dudes would play Melee every night for like weeks. Like, I mean, not weeks, for way more than that. Like for years. Until I left for UCLA, that was what we did. They were announcing like the characters for Brawl, the next one, versus Smash Brothers Brawl. And I remember they excluded Mewtwo from the roster, and I was like way too upset about it. I was personally assaulted in some way. Like genuinely there's a mental health conversation to be had here. Like it was really, looking back, I remember how like overwhelmingly seriously I took this. Like really I have no particular, I like the character of Mewtwo, but it wasn't like, I wasn't good with him or anything. It was very strange. So like that is how somehow from that came this idea that he was like dead and there was someone like killing the characters off, you know, the ones that didn't make it.
I was having dinner with Zach at this little southern cafe, can't remember the name of it, in Van Nuys, California. And we were riffing on kind of the hilarious absurdity of they had just announced Sonic the Hedgehog for Smash Brothers Brawl. And when normally Kirby eats somebody in the game, he eats their hat or their helmet or whatever, but Sonic was the first character that he just had their scalp. And that led to this extensive conversation about Kirby's devouring and scalping people and wearing their skin, which led to like this Hannibal Lecter scenario. We began to like riff on this dark Smash Brothers world idea and how you would transfer these character archetypes into a darker, realistic setting, this grittier setting. And we joked about it, but it wasn't until Zach came back later, like, I actually have been developing this now into a further idea, and I want to talk to you about maybe doing it. We had another dinner at the same place.
So I was like pitching that to Matt, and I remember when I pitched in the Kirby idea, it was like he had the same idea, like it was already cooked. Like he'd clearly been thinking about it on his own, like in some way, like it was kismet. It was really strange. We could do a web series, and to make it like remotely filmable, it could be like a noir, down to earth kind of world. Yeah, so we were off to the races, and we never talked about the Knights of the Round Table thing ever again.
I had been wanting to make my own projects for a while. I had saved up for a bit and bought like Canon XL1 camera. It was a standard definition, small tape camera. I had bought a tripod. I had bought a boom mic with a stand. It was like the most basic hobbyist filming setup you could possibly have. And I taught myself how to edit a little bit. I'd done some small sketches with friends and was kind of just starting the process of wanting to make things for the internet in the era in which internet media was just starting to really burgeon. Fan-made films and shorts and comedic sketches were starting to pop off. So it was a really cool place to kind of practice creativity. And so when he brought this idea, something he really wanted to make, and I had the means to do so, we kind of just sat down and hashed it out over an evening. And it was kind of a reaching beyond our means and experience, but you kind of have to try somewhere and learn as you go. And that's kind of how the series started. Developing it from there was kind of getting fed up with waiting for something to happen and instead just making something happen ourselves, regardless of if we had money or skills to do it.
There Will Be Brawl is a synthesis of disparate inspirations. As part of his degree, Grafton was taking a class on classic crime novels, and he had recently read Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons' seminal deconstruction of the superhero genre, Watchmen. The blend of classic film noir style and cartoony icons called back to Who Framed Roger Rabbit, one of Grafton's favorite films. The series draws heavily from Martin Scorsese's historical epic Gangs of New York in both tone and Brawl's emphasis on gang warfare. The series ended up including a variety of visual homages to Gangs of New York, and Daniel Day-Lewis's portrayal of the film's antagonist Bill the Butcher was emulated in Brawl's main villain Ganondorf.
I cut off his head, stick it on a pike. Raise it high up so all in the streets can see. That's what preserves the order of things.
Nowadays, right? I mean, even 10 years ago, the idea of Brawl, of like taking a very funny, cutesy thing and then like here's the dark version of it, is like the most overdone thing. It's just the most overdone idea ever. But when we did it, when we were doing it, the only thing I'd seen, like the thing that gave me the idea, is there was a robot chicken. I don't think I've ever told anybody this. It was a robot chicken, and it was the movie Seven done with the Smurfs, and it was done like pretty seriously, like Brawl seriously, and I just loved it. I was just like, oh my god, this is awesome. So that was where that idea came from. I like taking a very dark genre and like being true to it and like the emotions of it, while finding the place where it intersects with like this happy childhood franchise and these characters.
With their inspirations locked and loaded, the pair began building a bleak world filled with corrupt cops, bloodthirsty gangsters, and nihilistic heroes.
We've got 1 billion characters. We need one roughly humanoid to be the main character. And it just like felt like Mario just felt boring. And then it was just like, well, Luigi. And then it just clicked.
Well, everyone's used to Mario being the main character and everything. And quite honestly, I was intrigued by Luigi when I began playing Brawl when it came out. Because if you beat the game with Luigi, and you unlock his final Smash trophy and read the description for his creepy little shadow dance he does, the description reads somewhere along the lines of, after living years in his brother's shadow, Luigi finally embraced the umbra darkness that he's been left in, and gives off a sorceress incantation, because I think he just can't take being the second player anymore. So ever since then I was like, Luigi's pretty awesome. I started playing in the game and realized he's just the weirdest guy. Like, he's not just like a lamer version of Mario. They made him just like rock like a boat and twitch his nose for no reason. It's like, this guy is weird. And so when we were discussing the series, we're like, well, nobody would really expect Luigi to be the main character. And plus, it would make it more interesting to show his arc as well.
Luigi for sure, like that just makes sense to me. But then Mario was just kind of like there in my head. Like I wasn't sure what to do with him. Now, I really love the character of Mario, our version, as played by Paul, who I fucking love. But that was pretty I feel like pretty late in the development. I think that was really Matt's idea, that he was like this angrier, disgruntled. And I was like, yeah, that is great. So like I knew it was, especially at first, if a character was cute, like a really cutesy character, then we just made them really violent. Really, like that was the flip, and that was very easy. And then after we did that like 20 times, I was like, oh, that's a pattern that we can look into, or just keep doing because it's fun.
Being largely filmed in Los Angeles gave the series an inherent comedic contrast. While downtown LA may be mundane to an average American, to a cartoon character like Luigi, who lives in an oversaturated fairy tale world, LA is a hellish dystopia. Super Smash Bros. Brawl contains 35 unique playable characters in its base roster, varying wildly in tone and genre, with fantastical medieval knights doing battle against spacefaring furries and dinosaurs. Grafton and Mercer had committed themselves to representing every single playable character from across the Smash series up until that point, even if just through a cameo. Outside of the playable roster, characters from across Nintendo's catalog fill the cast, from retro favorites such as Pauline and Little Mac to, at the time, fresh faces such as Rosalina. There Will Be Brawl needed actors, lots of them, and so the talent hunt began.
We pitched the idea, the overall, idea of like a film noir kind of HBO crime drama version of the Nintendo universe. That was a very novel idea at the time. It's kind of been a little done to death since then. But at the time, it was a relatively fresh idea, and people chuckled at the idea. After a brief discussion, kind of saw the vision and the contrast of the satire and the comedy coming from how serious it takes itself in the face of how absurd and ridiculous the concept is and the costumes are. And so the idea got people excited. The idea that web media could be a viable way to show your craft as an actor, as a costume creator, as a post-production individual. We kind of began to assemble a team just really based on wanting to make something cool, and at the end of the day, maybe have something cool to show for it for the rest of our independent careers.
For the first 3 episodes, Mercer handled the directing, cinematography, lighting, editing, and special effects, aided by assistant directors Damian Beurer and Jack Conway.
No, and that's the thing. Even the credits won't fully credit everybody who did everything in the film. I mean, everyone did absolutely everything on that set. I directed some scenes, assistant directed a bunch of other stuff. Everybody produced this movie. No one was asked. I think everybody was told. I think that's what it was. So you're going to be playing this person. You're going to be playing. Yeah, because everybody just said, "You're making something. How do I help?" That's kind of the group that we were in. And if it was mentioned, "Hey, I'm working on something. Well, what can I do for you?" And then it just turned into this wildfire through our friend group. That's just what brought everybody together. So what started off as like all these small like satellite groups of friends from like anime conventions and video game conventions, and just coming together for their love of the characters, and it all just kind of fell into place. And then, well, since you're doing this, what characters do you want to be and who would you want to be a part of? I think I got brought in early into episode 1. There's a lot of cosplayers in the series, a lot of OG cosplayers, but like there's such a vast catalog of characters to pull from. So what do? Everybody just kind of starts asking and pulling. And all right, so we're going to go to Gavin. Gavin, you're going to play Marth. Gavin leaned into it, got the wig, got the sword, made everything, we like went back and looked at the character again. And because of that character that he played was awesome. We all wanted each other to get to the next level, to make the next bar.
Matt Mercer and I have been friends since elementary school. We always were hanging out and have always been in each other's lives. But really it was Matt and Zach just coming to me asking if I wanted to be an extra. They needed a cop, they needed Marth. And so I said I'd be glad to help, and threw on the blue wig. And also we needed props, and back in the day I used to make prop weapons for my costumes. So I made the prop weapons for Marth and Ike. It's not like it was a structured project. I know originally Zach and Matt were planning on being 3 episodes, and then it just got, Zach had more to write. Zach knew he could explore further avenues.
As far as cast and crew goes, a handful of folks we already knew. I had many friends who I met through the convention cosplay scene. I myself was a cosplayer, and so between our experience of building props and making costumes, we felt like, and makeup, we had a pretty solid setup of friends that we already had that could do a lot of that lifting already. As far as like post-production, I had to teach myself how to edit. I had to teach myself how to do After Effects. And so it was a lot of like training myself on online video tutorials. And as the series progressed and the scope of it began to expand, that's where we began to reach out to friends or people that we had been recommended to that had more experience than I did that could take it to the next level. And of the original cast, like Kat Steele, who played Peach, she was a friend for a long time, who was a great actress. And so I asked her if she'd be interested in doing it. Kylie Bear, who played Wario, was a voice actor friend of mine that I'd met at conventions and some mutual projects at the very beginning of my voiceover career, and was asked if he'd be interested in being a part, and I'm very glad he got on board for that. A lot of the smaller ancillary characters were just friends who were down, some of which just weren't actors, but I dragged them into it anyway. JoEllen Elam, who plays Zelda, at the time was my girlfriend as well, so that was an easy, like, hey, you have a great Zelda costume, you're not an actress, but do you want to be in this thing and play the character? And she's like, I hate being on camera, but as long as I don't have too many lines.
Like, we were dating and we lived together at the time. He needed help with like costuming and makeup and actors. And so I was like, down to help him. Yeah, Matt and like Grafton kind of pitched it to me as being like just a casual, easy thing I could do. I didn't realize until like much later that my role was like a lot bigger than what they had told me. It's so cringe. Like I am not an actress. I don't feel comfortable like in front of the camera at all. Once they got on like real actors, I was like, totally felt like inadequate. I was like, oh no, like, but yeah. I've been doing a lot of like cosplay stuff since 2002. I was just doing stuff for myself and selling costumes and taking commissions for people online. I don't think I had done any kind of like film stuff before Brawl. Yeah, I totally had no idea what I was doing, but like it was fun testing things out. And I remember thrifting a lot. Like all the wardrobe, we just went to a ton of like thrift stores to pull everything.
Literally, I want to say like half of everything that we either built or wore, whether it was a wig or fabric or whatever, most of it was from like my cosplay piles, you know, because at that point I'd been a costumer, cosplayer for 15 or so years. I had so much stuff lying around. I'm pretty sure that's why they asked me to help in the first place. So they were like, Diana has so much stuff. Let's just ask her for stuff. She probably has everything we could possibly need except for fake noses. The main reason I had agreed to do the costumes was JoEllen had a business. Like she made costumes as a business. And I remember, I think saying like, she's going to be too busy doing her job to do these costumes. Why don't you just let me do it? Like, I'll do it, the first round of them. And again, 3 episodes. We were making 3 episodes of this. It was going to all be done in 3 episodes.
And it was all, like, sometimes we'd get, hey, we need this character overnight. One time, Zach Grafton, bless him, reached out to me the night before a shoot saying, hey, we want to add this character. Can you make this wig? And I just happened to have a pink wig. How do I even describe? It was chaos, which was a lot of cosplay of the early 2000s. It's not, let me use these perfect techniques and make everything amazing. It was, how fast can we do it? Good enough. Which also then kept it fun, because it wasn't like we had to have this extremely high standard for HD or anything. It was just making it look good enough.
So it was very much kind of a ramshackle, grab who we can, and then the hard part became who can't we cast from our friends who have a heavy amount of narrative weight to pull. And that's when we began holding auditions. We began to put out auditions online. We went through a whole series of auditions from just random people, many of which were very unique, odd folks in Los Angeles that were very memorable auditions that weren't quite right for the characters. We did a bunch of auditions and we didn't find really anybody from Mario or Luigi that was like hitting. And my friend Clive, who I worked with, he said, I have a friend Paul who I think could visually kind of be a good Mario, but also he's a good actor. I'm like, bring him in.
I got involved with that through a friend of mine, Clive Hawkins. Clive decided to have, hey, we're going to have a Call of Duty night with some of the boys. Mm-hmm. And Mercer was there, myself, a guy named Adrian Flowers, and Clive, and we're just, playing it up. And Mercer and I hit it off, and Mercer starts demonstrating his amazing ability at doing voices, popping characters one after another. And I'm just, holy shit.
Yeah.
You're amazing. There's not even a hint of one character to the next.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, that's a weakness of mine. My voice. I've got this one that you're hearing now, and that's it. Next day, he calls me and goes, hey, I've got this project I'm doing. I'd like you to audition. Here's the thing. We want an Italian accent. I'm like, you dick. Did you not listen to a thing I said last night?
And go. What the hell is he doing here?
How you doing, Princess? Didn't know you frequented these parts.
You know you ain't supposed to be here. Get along now.
Don't wind yourself up. I was just going. Busy man, things to do. You know, I got a clogged drain at the shop. Maybe you should come by.
What did you say to me?
I'm calling you a no-good plumber.
We ain't a no plumbers. I been a referee. I been a doctor. You ever seen a goddamn plunger in these hands?
And Paul was incredible, brought this gravitas and this power and just kind of out of nowhere. Like I'd never met him before, but he nailed that audition immediately.
Duraso was asked if he could recommend any other talent for the series, so he pulled from his contacts at Acme Comedy Theater, whose members such as Kirk Daedrick, Jordan Crane, Matt Key, and Tony Rago filled the cast of Brawl.
So I did a small-scale second Luigi audition at my apartment. And that's where both Matt Key and Tony Rago came in to audition for Luigi.
I say a lot of shit like that lately. Only way to keep us sane in a world like this. Truth is, I ain't so clean on myself.
Tony came in first, and he was phenomenal. He was this great kind of, stoic intensity, but was very funny, and he understood the comedy of it. And he was almost going to be Luigi until Matt Key showed up.
I went to a school in Oklahoma called Southern Nazarene University for my undergrad, and they would have like talent shows and stupid like variety show kinds of things. And it would always have a theme. And my senior year, I like the creative leader on it, and we decided to do a Nintendo theme. And I ended up writing a number of sketches as interstitials between the acts, and I was Luigi in that. So I had already had experience playing Luigi in undergrad when I went to seminary. And then after I got out of seminary, I went to a comedy theater in Los Angeles where I did a Mario Luigi sketch that a friend of mine wrote. And he was like, hey, will you come do this Luigi? Will you be Luigi in my sketch? And I was like, I've got experience. So when Mercer came to me about 1.5 years, 2 years after that, I was like, do you want to play Luigi? I was like, why does this keep happening to me? Why am I mean, I'm happy to be Luigi. But yeah, now I very much associate with Luigi in any Nintendo game. So when I play Brawl, Luigi. When I play Mario Kart, I'm either Luigi or Waluigi. I still have a lot of our friends calling me Luigi a lot. Like, hey, Luigi. It's been like 15 years. But I'm happy with it. And I'm sure that a lot of people would say the same thing, but I think that I associate with his second player sort of nature, if that makes any sense. Like, it feels like I'm kind of like, I'm great at what I do, but I'm always like in second place. I'm always like, I'm the looked over brother, you know, not, and I don't mean that like literally, like I'm not looked over in my family. My family loves me. So yeah, and I'm you know, I'm 6'5", I'm tall. So it makes sense for me to be the tall, thin one, I guess.
Okay.
Matt Key. Degradation. Gang of violence. Riots. And abduction. Always abduction. It wasn't always this way. The Mushroom Kingdom used to be bright, colorful, a great place for the family. Used to be something to care about, if you can believe it.
I really wanted the part really bad. Like, I really like studied the sides that he sent me. Like, I really like memorized the lines. I had the beats down, and I remember going out to my car after the audition and being like, man, I really want to get this role that's not paying me any money and is going to take up a lot of my time. But I had just quit a job that I hated at that time to pursue stuff like this. This is exactly what I want to be doing. These are the skills that I want to have. So let's fucking go. I walked into Mercer's apartment and I met him. I met Grafton, and off to the left, their roommate was setting up like kind of like a backdrop so they could videotape it against a window. He jumps down and he's like, hey Matt, hey Zach, I'm done setting this stuff up, so I'm gonna take off. And I turned around and it was this guy named Greg Schistel was his roommate. Greg Schistel was one of my closest friends in high school. And we both went to high school in North Texas. I had no idea that he was living in Los Angeles and that he was only like 5 miles away from me. And I was like, I haven't seen this guy in 10 years. And now all of a sudden, here's like one of my closest like theater friends. He was like on the tech crew for theater, and I was always like the actor or like the director. He just looked at me and he goes, Matt Key? And I go, Greg fucking Schistel? And then he goes, you cuss now? The whole time Matt and Zach were watching it thinking that we're playing a joke on them in some way. And we were like, no, like I had sleepovers at his house, like.
And Matt Key knocked it out of the park, looked the part, sounded the part. The audition, I mean, the accent was shaky, but so was everybody's, and that just made it funnier for all of us. He was perfect for it. And hilariously went to high school with my roommate in Texas, and it was one of those weird moments where they walked into my apartment, which, by the way, walking into a random person's apartment in the middle of Van Nuys, California that you've never met for an audition is a very Los Angeles experience, and sometimes you end up on the missing persons list after doing so. So props to Matt Key for being bold. But yeah, he like had a weird reunion with my roommate. They haven't seen each other in many years. It was kind of the first sign that Kismet was coming together.
I mean, this is going to sound so cliche, but like I immediately had like best friend energy from him. And to this day, he's one of my closest, bestest friends. This guy fucking rules. Like, I like this guy. He's doing exactly what I want to be doing, but I don't have the production or the direction skills. Like, I have the writing skills and the acting and improvisation skills. This is exactly what I want to be doing. And he seems to have all of those skills. Mercer is like, he's one of those friends who is so talented, it like pisses you off. Like, why were the heavens not passing out all of those talents on the talent day? There's just sort of an atmosphere that he exudes around him, that sort of presence from him, that sort of like confidence. And he would say that he doesn't have confidence, you know, that you know, he doesn't see himself in that way. But I think all of us who know him well would be like, yeah, you're an idiot. Like, you're you're very stupid if you don't think you're talented.
You guys are a little fucking scary. How long this all worked out?
I really look like Luigi.
Especially with the slash like that and everything.
Like, I hate to leave Grafton out of it. I think he's a much smarter writer than he gives himself credit for. It's so funny, even like doing the rewatch, I haven't rewatched it probably in like 5 or 6 years. And rewatching it, I was like, God damn it, like Grafton he's a good writer. Like, I was always genuinely impressed when we would get the first scripts. I've only got the first 2 episodes, so I know where it goes, but I really want to find out where this is going. And I want to see how they interpret all the other characters in Super Smash Brothers. And like, I want to see how this all fits together because, like I said, Zach is such a brilliant writer. And Mercer's a brilliant writer as well, like as evidenced by, you know, success of Critical Role. But Mercer's also just like a brilliant creative. So between the two of them, I really saw like a lot of potential with where it could go. And I really wanted to be a part of that.
But when Rago was so good, we wanted to use him in something else. And we're like, well, he would be great for Police Chief Link, but he has this like, he doesn't look like Link at all. But that's even funnier. He has a goatee. Like, you know what? We're just going to make him Link anyway. And Link will look absolutely nothing like Link other than the hat and the hair. And that'll be hilarious to us. So it was like finding those kind of little points of absurdity, things that were so accurate that it was absurd and things that were so not accurate that it was equally absurd on the other side of the spectrum.
And looking back on it, I don't know how anyone but Matt Key could play Luigi. Like, it's just perfect. So I'm really glad I didn't get that role. But yeah, I came in, auditioned for Luigi, and then they got back to me and said, "You're great. You're not getting that role. How about Link?" First of all, I thought the writing was incredible. And usually when you're doing something for free, the writing is not incredible. Zach, what he did with that was brilliant. I really would put Matt and Zach together. You know, Zach wrote it, Matt directed it, but I think it's like the Coen brothers. I don't know really where one begins and the other one ends. You know, like they were both there all the time. And what I really take from Matt is, you know, he just really was immersed in that world, really had that singular vision, really had a lot of drive. Of the two of them, I would have to say, he was the one that was just like, yeah. You know, Zach's a little bit more laid back and cynical and lovely in a burnt heart sort of way. It was just this whole gung-ho attitude, you know? And I mean, this is back in 2008. And so, you know, not a lot of people had web series, you know, there wasn't that much around. I remember looking around going, this is the future.
I had just moved to LA and I was hanging out or working with just these really fun people. For the first time in my life, I would say I felt very like creatively engaged, and I was surrounded by people that were like similarly creative and like wanted that same, you know, had that same drive. Before college, I was like an absolute shut-in. Like I was very not social. So like having this sudden like group of creative friends was this huge change, like just lifestyle change. So I definitely let that, I definitely prioritized them. Definitely didn't prioritize my classes, and I don't recommend that route.
There Will Be Brawl had a largely original score provided by 2 composers, Daniel Ezra and Mercer's cousin Steph Stigma, who worked entirely independently from one another. Ezra composed the opening song for episode 1, which is titled Mushroom Kingdom Nocturne. The track immediately sets the tone for the series, beginning with dour, foreboding chords as Luigi voyages through downtown Los Angeles, before switching to a melancholic ragtime.
Degradation, gang violence, riots, and abductions. Always abductions.
I was in college at UCLA, and I was friends with Zach Grafton. They were starting to shoot, and Zach was gathering more people from the LA area. And I remember they were doing their shoots, and they would come to me and ask for specific kinds of music. And I had a few ideas of my own, but some stuff Zach like specifically asked for. I'm like 20 years old in college and was pretty gung-ho about kind of anything, to be honest. But I did video game covers in my life before. Like, I learned how to play the Mario theme as a piano player and all that stuff. So I was just like, this is right up my alley. Like, I definitely want to make music for this. I want a career in music. If I was hungry for kind of any opportunity that came my way, I didn't realize that it would be such a like professional thing. I thought it was kind of just for fun, but like, hey, maybe like something cool can come out of it. I had the idea for the Mushroom Kingdom Nocturne, which is my favorite, which is like the one I'm most proud of. I was like, I love the Mario 2 music. That overworld theme is really great, and it really lends itself to like a minor key version of it. For something that's supposed to be film noir, I was like, oh, I got it. I got the idea for like what I think the theme for this show should be. I was composing a lot on piano at the time, so like it was, if I did get scenes, I could play the scene just at my piano and just kind of fiddle about. My process is improvisation based, so like I'll sit down and improv whatever kind of fits a vibe, try to think about that vibe and try to figure out some music for it, and then take the best bits and sculpt those into something. But I think I might have seen the video for the intro sequence of Luigi walking around LA, and it really like, I was like, oh, I know exactly like what this vibe is. The capacity now to send somebody video and be able to just open it really fast, it was much more difficult for them to like get their stuff rendered and sent over and whatever. I don't know. And like sending large files was not as easy in those days. So yeah, most of the time I was working in the dark. I remember I had the idea for the first track over like winter break from college and was just able to like record it during winter break while I'm at home. I used Reason 6 or something like that. I knew how to make MIDI music just on my laptop with Reason, but I didn't have a controller. I didn't have a MIDI keyboard. I just literally programmed in one by one, like drew in the notes into the grid. I was really lo-fi at that time. I composed and recorded a lot of music without knowing a lot of technical stuff. So like I used GarageBand and a little MXL condenser mic and an M audio box, and then whatever instruments I had lying around. I'm playing saxophone on one of the songs, I'm playing accordion, acoustic guitar, pianos.
Matt's my cousin. Yeah, actually, we grew up playing Nintendo games and playing Street Fighter at the Circle K after school. And when he was doing Brawl, Daniel, who was great, was really busy with college. So, like, you know, he asked if I would come in and help. I was just kind of set up to pump shit out quick. It was definitely hair-raising because the music was one of the very last things to go into the whole process. So oftentimes I wouldn't get the edit until like release day. So I would have like maybe 4 or 5 hours to just do all of the music, especially towards the end as the episodes got longer and longer. It was intense, and I would just hole up in my studio apartment in Van Nuys and just fucking hunker down and go for it.
I thought of a lot of these tracks as like songs that worked better maybe over credits, to be honest, you know? To end an episode with something like that. I think that's what a lot of them kind of ended up being, and I was totally happy with that, you know?
As a cautionary reminder to our viewers, recent reports state that Mafia Don Bowser still reigns as king from Koopa Beach to Little Delfino. Mewtwo holds all Old Kingdom territory and reputedly has a hand in every business transaction in the upstate area. DDD still retains his chokehold on the suburbs. And we here at Channel 8 ask our viewers to avoid wearing gang-related clothing in these areas at all costs. The least is known about Ganondorf, whose direct role in this deadlock has remained a mystery. Surprisingly so, since the stalemate began mere weeks after he was first reported to have been seen within the kingdom.
In There Will Be Brawl's backstory, the formerly utopian Mushroom Kingdom has fallen into disarray following a cannibalistic rampage by the sadistic serial killer Kirby. 6 years later, Princess Peach is the only authority figure left in the nation who is still fighting for progress. But her public perception is slandered by the news anchor Lakitu exploiting her connection with the disgraced Mario Bros, both of whom Peach is sleeping with.
For me, at least, one of the biggest challenges was finding locations. Depending on what you write. Yeah, if it's something that's more like, talking heads in a modern day setting and people in an apartment, a slice of life show, then yeah, you can just shoot in anybody's place. But when you pick things that are more like fantastical and go into the realms of sci-fi or fantasy or have, non-realistic video game characters brought to life and you need locations to match, especially in a place like Los Angeles where everyone expects you to pay out the nose if you're going to use their place, it's a pain in the butt. So we ended up stealing a lot of shots. We shot an entire sequence in the first episode in which Peach and Luigi they have a hotel room and they kind of have a short love scene and then like an argument afterward. We shot that in this little seedy motel in Santa Monica without the manager knowing, and partway through filming he found out.
Hello? What? We'll be 5 minutes. Thank you.
And so we're in the middle of shooting this long shot, and we have it on our blooper reel where like Luigi's like leaning over the bed and he's doing this really intense like angry monologue to himself, and then all of a sudden this like angry old Asian guy shows up in the window and starts shouting. And so we're like, shit. Okay, so we stop the camera. Our producer goes out and he's telling us, "You cannot shoot porn here. Do not shoot porn." I'm like, no, sir. We're finishing up. Look, I'm destroying the tape. Like we got a blank tape out and pulled the tape out to show him that which we didn't actually destroy anything. We're moving the equipment out, and as we're moving out the equipment we don't need anymore, we're getting like the last 10-15 minutes of shoots while our producer is distracting him. But yeah, we almost had the cops called on us a couple times. Some of our shoot locations.
That's gotta be the most awkward feeling ever.
Oh,
especially if you're one of the actors. I mean.
Especially since like the actor has this giant prosthetic nose and mustache on, has no shirt, he's in his boxers, white gloves, and just turns around to the manager and is like, "Hi." So
I'm Luigi.
It's okay, we're all friends here.
Now, the Mushroom Kingdom finds itself terrorized by another serial killer, known only as the Butcher. The police are incapable of unmasking the killer's identity, while also quelling an increasingly violent gang war. With no options left, Peach goes to consult Kirby to get into the mind of a killer.
I would have thought you'd have put your heroes on their case. They clearly did a passable job of apprehending me. What has become of our fair boys of red and green?
This is the case file. I can leave it with you to look over, or...
On the condition that you tell me one thing. With the kingdom crumbling around you, you must need to work out your aggression in the name of service to the people. So, tell me, Princess Peach, when it is your Peach the people are servicing, how do you prefer it? Tall and thin? Or short and fat?
Kirby was made by, they took a yoga ball and paper mache'd a yoga ball multiple times. Those eyeballs were terrifying on the inside, and they had that one beam across, and they were screwed together. So when you're inside the head, you could take the eyes and make them go like this, so you can move the eyes in every direction.
Matt did like too good of a job making that thing, because I think he made like the teeth out of press-on fingernails and like filed them down and like put it on the inside, and then we did something that was like a paper mache with a with a resin coating on the outside to give it like that kind of glossy look, but it didn't cure completely smooth. So it was kind of like lumpy and even more like, for some reason that texture made it look even grosser, sweaty and stuff. But we had that prop in our hallway for months. And it was just like this scary, like little monster that just like lived in our hallway.
Kirby was made at my house. Kirby was made in my backyard. Kirby was my yoga ball. And then he was big, like he was really big. They didn't have room for him at Matt's old place because it was like a 2-bedroom apartment. And so I have a house. So everybody was like, well, can we store things here? And so there was a lot of stuff that ended up being stored here before it lived forever in Matt Key's garage. And one of the things was Kirby. Kirby lived at my house for a while until my grandfather walked past the room he was in and saw it and was like, that can't be here anymore. That has to go. Like, it can't live here. He was like, it's terrifying. I don't care where you put it, not in the house.
Timer, how did that work?
That was actually mostly me in the Kirby outfit whenever you saw him.
Was it really?
Yeah, it wasn't comfortable, I can guarantee you. In fact, we have some behind-the-scenes photos showing you just how cramped and uncomfortable it was. I could barely see my feet at the bottom. My knees are pressed against my chest. My hands are cramped and pressed on the inside of the top. And I reinforced these with foam and such, but I'm having to simultaneously hold it up with my neck and shoulders while controlling both the eyes and the mouth simultaneously with each hand and deliver lines. So in short, I never, ever, ever want to do that again.
And you see him for very short moments, if I recall, almost walking.
Yeah, that I still don't know how I did that. I might have been because I was close to passing out at the time due to the sheer amount of pressure on my spinal column.
Peach is ultimately unable to obtain any usable information from Kirby and returns to her castle where, in classical fashion, she is abducted. Police Chief Link seizes on the power vacuum by declaring martial law.
Until such a time that I deem it safe for the subjects of the Mushroom Kingdom to return to normalcy.
So in the beginning, like, okay, we're just going to do 2 episodes because that's what I could afford to put into it. Anytime you do something with film and you don't have any money, it's just going to take forever. Like, every decision is going to require like a scheduled meeting in 3 weeks. Is the soonest anyone can meet. Like, it just goes on forever. Unless you have the money to like bind everyone together financially. Like, even after we had filmed, I think the first 2 episodes together, there was still like a very long time where I was just going to college and Matt was doing all sorts of things.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I was talking to Key. I'm like, have you heard from Mercer? You know, he's like, nope. And we went months without hearing from him after we'd shot either episode 2 or 3. And I'm like, well, I guess it's over. You know, over or we got recast. I don't know. I haven't heard from him. You know, then he goes like, hey, what are you doing? I'm like, where have you been? He's like, oh, I was in China doing, I think it was China, doing voiceover work for 3 months. Like, thanks for the heads up, dude.
They had grand plans that they were talking about, but I was like, this isn't going to happen. They were talking about wanting to do more and talking about, shopping it around. Again, there weren't a lot of web series. So I was just sort of thinking, well, let's do this now. At least it'll be fun. And who knows how it's received? Who knows what happens?
In Hollywood back at that time, there were a bunch of us who were really just trying to put out our own stuff. And we'd all be part of each other's projects. We all kind of wanted to get the one thing that kind of picked up and ran. But there were so many of these kind of like small side hustle kind of projects or passion projects that you were part of just because it just felt right and it was cool and your friends were doing it, that you hoped it would go somewhere, but you kind of didn't think it would, just because it's Hollywood. You never know what's going to pick up and what's not. I don't think I even really thought about the future of it. I just thought about like, this is really cool and I hope other people are going to like this.
Usually when you put something on the internet, especially in the early days of the internet, nobody cares. it's actually probably more so today. But it was very much kind of throwing something into the ocean and hoping it would find purchase somewhere. We hoped we hit the tone right. We hoped we had kind of hit the mix of something that was unique, but was something that we would want to watch, and so hoped that other people would want to watch it. We had hoped to do maybe a few more episodes. You know, we had lofty ideas, but we had no money, and we had spent it all on shooting the first 2 episodes. And maybe if worst comes to worst, we'd do additional episodes once every 6 months. You know, we'd still fund it ourselves. Over time, it would just be a much slower process. We weren't expecting anyone to necessarily pick it up. That was just kind of like a cool alternate reality that could happen.
The first episode was uploaded to 3 separate locations, the There Will Be Brawl website, YouTube, and Vimeo on September 24th, 2008. Within 4 days, it had accumulated 40,000 views on Vimeo alone. Within a month, it had 90,000. Kotaku featured the series on its front page, and the web media-focused news outlet TubeFilter reported on the series' first episode, writing, "There Will Be Brawl is not perfect yet, by any means, but it's the start of something potentially great. Apparently, they are currently operating under fair use provisions, and neither Nintendo nor the Mario Bros. Creator Shigeru Miyamoto know about the show yet."
In a perfect world,
Mercer says,
Miyamoto would see the show, appreciate the humor and love that went into it, and give us his blessing.
yeah, that and a boatload of cash to do it the justice it deserves.
And it found an audience. The articles went up about it. People were excited to see something that was extremely low budget and definitely done with limited skill and experience, but had heart and had intent and was in some ways better than people expected something like this would be.
To fund future episodes, a PayPal donation page was linked on their website, where fans donated enough money for the production of a 3rd episode to proceed. But donations alone could not maintain their vision for a full 8-episode series. Web video companies such as Funny or Die and College Humor expressed interest in carrying There Will Be Brawl. College Humor in particular was home to the similar series Street Fighter: The Later Years. Ultimately, Grafton and Mercer accepted the offer of internet video game magazine The Escapist.
Hi there. I'm Russ Pitts, video producer for The Escapist. You might not know this, but I'm actually quite famous. I've been producing television for years, and just last year, I signed Yahtzee. People also ask, where do you get the ideas for all those crazy videos you show on The Escapist? Truth is, I have no idea. I'm a producer. I take the ideas of other people and put my name on them.
We decided to go to The Escapist for 2 reasons. One, at the time they were kind of rising to prominence. It was very much kind of one of the spaces that was gamer-centric on the internet that was doing video content and had some attention to it. Second, they were the one that offered. A lot of people reached out and were like, hey, we like what you do. That's cool. There weren't a lot of people that were willing to give us money to continue to make it. It wasn't a lot. I think they gave us like $2,000 an episode. Each episode cost over $2,000. So, you know, all was said and done, I think I made a total of negative $5,000 on this whole web series, but none of us were making it for money. We were making it because we felt passionate by it. It was an exciting thing that we all got to collaborate on.
The good news is they're going to be funding the rest of the Brawl project and be exclusively debuting each episode from here on out on their website, relaunching it in about 2 to 3 weeks, I believe.
Wow, that must mean the next episodes are going to be incredible.
The actual funding from both you guys as the fans that actually got episode 3 underway, as well as them funding the rest of the project, means the quality of this show is just going to get bigger and better with each additional episode. And thank you very much for making that possible.
You guys are amazing. One love.
Don't do that.
I thought it was cute. They liked it.
Our experience with Escapist was fairly positive and fairly hands-off. A gentleman named Russ Pitts was our contact there, and their involvement was pretty much, here's your budget, here's the watermark you have to put on, every episode, which we argued against, but that was their preference. Here's the pre-roll and post-roll kind of Escapist logo you got to put in there, and give us the final video when it's ready, somewhere within the time frame of what you're expecting it to be. And then that was it. There wasn't any ad revenue share. So as far as partnerships go, financially maybe not the most sound, but we didn't know any better. And that was kind of there was no real standard at that earlier time of internet video, platforms. But creatively they were fine. They didn't cause any problems. They didn't give us any notes or any feedback. They were just letting us do our thing and putting it up when we had it done.
Previous uploads of There Will Be Brawl on Vimeo and YouTube were removed, and The Escapist relaunched the series in January 2009. The The Escapist funding allotted them to increase the episode count from 8 to 9. Episode 2 would air in February, followed by Episode 3 in March, after which the series mostly maintained a monthly schedule.
we tried to have a schedule. There was a trend as the series went on. I say this lovingly, where Zach Grafton had further swelling, grandiose ideas for the story. Each script kept getting longer and longer and longer. And he'd send me the next script for the next episode for my note pass, and I'd look at it like, this is going to be a much longer episode. It's going to take us longer to shoot this. We have to try and trim it down. And then I'd read the episode and be like, oh man, this is really good though, and I don't know what I'd cut. Each episode ended up just getting longer and more robust, which made for a finer quality series, but it also meant that we had to stretch our budget even thinner each time. The shooting was more intense. Some of the ideas for post got more crazy. Some of the dates that we had set for ourselves to release episodes would be delayed, sometimes many times. The Escapist would be concerned when dates would slip, but they weren't extremely intense about it. They weren't like overlords that were shouting at us or anything. If anything, we were just holding ourselves to a very high standard and were disappointed when we couldn't meet those. But as much as I give Zach shit for that trend of episodes, I'm so happy with the final result, with all we were able to do with what little we had, that I don't regret any of it.
One of the things that made Brawl really special, and one of the things that you can do with indie productions, and I mean indie, I mean like passion project, not professional level indie, which is some of the stuff I work on now, which just means not backed by a big studio and not union. You get to learn a lot. So sometimes you're just making it up as you go, and then sometimes you end up doing sound. Sometimes you're the one holding the boom mic. Sometimes you are learning how to apply and remove prosthetics. You have the opportunity to be involved in a lot of different aspects of it. Whereas now, the type of shows that I work on, there are set departments. And especially if it's a union show, you stay in your lane. You don't touch sound. You don't touch lighting. You don't do anything that's not your department. So there was something very special about the just make it work aspect where everyone kind of got to do a little bit of everything.
Episode 3 sees Luigi take it upon himself to investigate Peach's disappearance, but his efforts are stifled by the obstructive force of Police Chief Link.
So film noir is one of my favorite genres. And when I read the first episode script, it really made me think of Chinatown. That inspiration I kind of took, and I played Link like he was the cop in Chinatown who sort of is a rival with Jack Nicholson, but also sort of knows him. You know, they used to work together. Ironically, I'm not much of a game person. In fact, when I was doing the series, I quite often had to turn to Matt and Zach and sort of go, now, who am I talking about and what is this? Going into it, I knew about Mario, I knew about Luigi, I knew about Zelda and Link. So I didn't really feel like I needed to do a ton of research there, because also I think the research, more so than on the Nintendo side of things, was more on the film noir. The script that they wrote is really a film noir. We just happen to be dressed as Nintendo people talking about Nintendo people, but really that thing at its soul is a film noir.
Luigi seeks the help of Samus Aran, a former bounty hunter, who now works as one of Mafia Don DDD's most popular strippers.
Mister, you're just in time.
And now, the one you've all been waiting for, Samus Aran.
I got a phone call, and it was, I believe it was from Matt Mercer, who I was friends with. And he was like, hey, we're doing this thing, and we were thinking of you as Samus Aran. What do you think? And before he even finished, yes, of course. One of the things that I always said is that I would never personally cosplay a character that I didn't play when it came to my cosplay. I will say I've never played Samus. However, being a female in the geek culture world, and I actually ran my own website at the time called Girl Gaming Network, so I was very much about like female empowerment and, you know, kind of getting girls up and out in the industry. And so Samus is such a figurehead in that sort of like microculture that it was kind of like, it was almost like an honor to be asked to play that character, because she's just so much part of the fiber of the quote unquote girl gaming scene, that I don't think that I even needed to play her to understand her, if that makes any sense. Now, my character itself, that was interesting because I'm a very like wholesome kind of a person as just a human, and so when they were like, by the way, Samus is kind of a stripper, it was an interesting take on Samus, obviously, and you know, the zero bodysuit was kind of the joke there. That it was definitely interesting, but it also gave me an opportunity to play with something that I hadn't had an opportunity to play with, because I've never been cast that way before. Nobody looked at Becky and said, "You're a stripper." And so when it came to filming that scene, where I had to be in the club, it's very hot. That was very challenging for me. It's not something that I'm good at or used to. I was very stiff. And the team was so amazing. They literally put on the Ghostbusters theme song. And so when I'm dancing on the pole, I'm dancing to Ghostbusters. So next time you rewatch that, kind of put that on in the background and just imagine. It's just a really fun kind of, you know, Easter egg.
It's been a while, Luigi.
I need the names.
Your visits used to be so much more recreational.
Now I need the names.
Well, let's review the fucking facts here, Luigi. Princess is missing. Mario got punked. Let's say it's Bowser.
Makes a sense.
Then why are you here?
Doesn't it sit well? Bowser's too smart to make a move like that right after Mewtwo's death. Besides, he lost the interest in the princess when he became a Buddhist.
Well, you won't know.
Till I talking to him. Face to face.
Luigi does not end the episode any closer to finding Peter Bowser, but he has forged a few close alliances, such as his bond with the idealistic Pokemon trainer, Red. But the Mushroom Kingdom has worse in store for Luigi, as he is kidnapped by Donkey Kong and taken to Ganondorf. Ganondorf's arrival signals a new era for There Will Be Brawl, figuratively and literally, as the aspect ratio shifts from 4:3 to 16:9, marking the introduction of the new cinematographer Kevin T. Custer.
Do you know who I am? Yes. You know how I found you? Not exactly. But you knew this city would rat you out if you knocked on enough doors. That's some steel scrot on you, my friend. This war is coming. It's not up to me. The penguin and the turtle are crying out for your city's blood. And your cops are too busy choke-fucking liberty to stop them. But how much blood this brawl of theirs will consume, that we can alter.
Funnily enough, I didn't want to be Ganondorf originally. Zach made me do that. I think it was very much like trying to see who we could do it. Like maybe like we can audition some more folks, and he's like, "No, you do it." And I guess at the time I was dallying with on-camera work, and I was like, well, maybe this will be good for a reel, and maybe I should. So really the series kicks in heavily when it comes to that conversation with Luigi and Ganondorf. Like that really kind of sets the rest of the series tone and the stakes and the scope. And it's also one of the really like quiet, intense sequences.
You ever heard of Hyrule, my friend? Hyrule was a great nation, ruled by wisdom, upheld by courage, and hungry for power. Men lived and died by the sword. They protected or damned their families by the weight of their sack. This was a great nation. Do you know how Hyrule fell?
Your stock.
Stock trading. Economic collapse. The one great nation fell not to barbarians or warlords, but to bureaucracy. Little men in little press suits and little iron collars. What I failed to do in thousands of years, these little dickless maggots accomplished in 2 elections. Do not doubt my intent, friend. Your kingdom will know its new ruler. And if it doesn't, it will burn.
Ganondorf is the most inaccurate thing in the world. He's green with orange hair. Like that was the conceit with him. We were just like, let's just he's getting a nose. He didn't even have a wig. His hairpiece, the hairpiece for Ganondorf is faux fur that I measured to Matt and then glued to his head. Like, I think we were trying to find somebody else. I don't think he was initially supposed to be Ganondorf, so we couldn't find anybody. And he's like, I guess I'll do it. And I was like, oh, we're gonna have to paint this poor man green. We did, like 5 times. And it was always, that was the other thing with Brawl. It would always be like, oh, we only have to do this once, or we only have to do this like twice. And inevitably, I'd have to come in and like paint some poor person head to toe purple or blue or wolf.
As the director as well, it was one, trusting Kevin Custer, our DP, and working with him to really kind of focus on what was important for the scenes, the coverage that was necessary, and then trusting my crew as I sat down and got into my place as the character. I don't ever want to be a tyrant on set, especially when no one's being paid. So I very much believe in the idea of leadership through collaboration and leadership through positive reinforcement. Everyone there has something special to offer, and together you can make it better. It's never about telling the actor, you need to be angrier, you need to act this better. You know, I feel like a good director knows how to communicate something that the actor can work with. So it's not giving them extremely detailed fine notes in the performance about how their physicality should be changed here, or telling them how they should, giving them something that's more evocative as opposed to just telling them how to feel.
That a cigarette, man? That's on hard times. You goddamn hippie. I fucking fought for this country and you treat me like this, you fucking piece of shit.
Keep, bro. You be staying away from filthy foreign scum.
The habit of disappearing. So many pens, so few people. Where do they go?
We also wanted to play with a lot of social commentary and comparisons to xenophobia and challenges of our modern world as well, and kind of help that ground a lot of the story too. So like figuring out these factions, where they exist and what their real world counterpart would be, came from the world building of it, and trying to logic out where these characters sit in the society. Then the themes emerged from that. The migrants in this story being the newer characters that aren't Nintendo based, you know, the Solid Snakes, the Sonic the Hedgehogs, the characters that are considered outside of the Nintendo universe that have now come into it, and the tensions that rise there. This is the xenophobia of outsiders into an older kind of nationalist power regime. It's an important story to tell, but it also is a very prominent part of our world at the time and today and for a long time. And so it grounds the story in a little bit of reality, and also brings humor to the absurdity that these struggles are so real for video game characters. So you can get both the comedic beat of, you know, we have the terrible circumstances that surround the war vet of Solid Snake, who is forced to live in the street, which is very much a serious issue, to help emphasize the power struggles in the Mushroom Kingdom, and kind of how that classist society kind of keeps people down to help build the eventual uprising of the impoverished and the disillusioned. We didn't want it to be, you know, extremely aggressive and too preachy, because it's meant to be a lighthearted series for its darkness, nor do we want it to feel like it's making fun of very real things and trying to bring, you know, disrespectful light to very important things.
There's no need for anyone to get hurt.
Tell that to Swine. My bro here, very twitchy.
Do you know what will happen to this place if you kill a cop?
Maybe they start melee on our turf. Oh, longing to see that happen, man.
Silence. Stay your hand.
It will not be a melee. It will be a brawl.
There it is.
He did the thing.
Best line.
What the fuck?
What a scene! My God.
This is so ridiculous. I haven't watched this in so long.
It was written that way.
What did we do?
We made art.
The longest day for shooting, besides the last episode, was the day that we were doing Olimar and Sonic, and we had Solid Snake, and I was going to have to do Sonic's makeup, Olimar's makeup, Snake's makeup, anybody who was in the background who needed to look like a dirty, unhoused person. I had to also do Falcon, Wolf, and Fox, Matt, and then anyone else who's going to be coming through as well. So I had, I don't know, maybe 12 to 15 very intense makeup looks that day. And then we had all the filming, and someone came by. I think we were like maybe 12 hours, 13 hours into that day. Someone came with Jack in the Box tacos. And I have been chasing the memory of how fucking good that taco was since that day. It has never been replicated. I've never had a Jack in the Box taco that tasted as good as that taco did. But that was the best taco I'd ever eaten in my life at that point. And I think it might have been because we'd hit like delirium at that point, but it was also, I want to say, like at least 22 hours of filming.
What powers you through something like that?
Being under 30. I don't have that power anymore. We were fueled on Capri Suns and Fritos and gumption and love of our friends and not knowing better. That's really, that was it. And maybe it shouldn't have happened that way, but honestly, most of the time you don't know better. Like now I work in production. I work on films. And if there's a 17-hour day, I've only had one 17-hour day, and we all got paid so much for that. But that's the difference, is a bunch of friends coming together to make some weird art versus the professional version that you learn later of, oh, there are consequences. Friendship. We got paid in friendship. Worth it, honestly. It was great. I loved it.
Episode 4 was released on April 10th, 2009, and the production schedule was already beginning to take its toll on Mercer, who went 43 hours without sleep to complete the episode's post-production.
Like Matt's like one of the hardest workers I know. We would do these crazy long shoots, and then we would come home and he would just be editing like into the morning, like on his computer. I do remember him like editing like insane hours. He just wasn't resting. He just straight up was not sleeping. He was running off of like Monster energy drinks. He would always have like a green Monster energy drink like by his desk, like trying to get it done. It was crazy.
Their eyes remind me of the cannibals of Rain. Peach's eyes were never scared.
My favorite stuff is all the discordant, twisted stuff, like the scene where Luigi meets Olimar on the spaceship. That was one of my favorite pieces I did for the whole thing. If you haven't figured out, I'm a bit on the goth side, and I've always dug like John Carpenter's soundtracks. I was always a big fan of, and yeah, that scene was just exuding vibes. Like it was just such a mood. Like I was listening to a lot of this like old like chamber rock stuff from the 1960s, like Henry Cow and Soft Machine and all that kind of, like really avant-garde compositionally. And so I was didn't really have quite like a steady rhythm. I was using the rhythm of the dialogue and the actions.
Old man Ganon's still shrewd. Sees how close we are. Knows it's bio-warfare and darkest magic that will open Hell's Maw. And the whole world just needs that little push. He's afraid, though, of that darkness and those who dwell beyond it. Ain't that right, Rob? Wise words, my friend. Rob here, he's been around since the beginning. He's seen everything. He's seen the world in bloom and the blackest demons dance. Pretty soon, there'll be nothing left to observe. The kingdom's as dead as your princess. That just about does it.
Olimar's spaceship was an art exhibit created for Burning Man, known as Omega 1. Because of the series' low budget, the shooting locations were often the cast and crew's houses. Damian Beurer's apartment became Mario and Luigi's apartment, and Matt Key's house became Wario's house. More elaborate sets were either shot guerrilla style, were personal favors, or ate up the limited budget provided by the escapists. Episode 5 makes heavy use of an Italian restaurant adjoined to Acme Comedy Theater, reimagined in Sorry as a bar that serves as a front for a brothel run by King Dedede. The brothel was shot separately at Diana Tolin's house and edited together to look like a single building.
Anytime Mario fights a giant monkey, that's a good day.
For myself as well, I really enjoyed the King Dedede conversation with Luigi.
I was sent here for a reason. Peach goes missing on the same day that Mewtwo turns up dead, and now Zelda's about to be crowned. This goes deep.
I know what you're thinking, Luigi. You look at me, you see a fat, sloppy hedonist. A dopey pushover who's grown too big for his parka. The Koopas may be made of steel on the outside, but I've faced far worse with far less. Believe you me, I've had my share of monsters.
Man, DDD, that's craft foam in a dream, man. I don't know how we kicked that down. There are definitely some characters that I did the makeup on, because I did all the principal costuming, but then I did pretty much all of the really intense makeup design. And so Matt would show up with like some kind of additional piece, like a prosthetic, or in some cases, it would literally be like craft foam that I would then attach lace to, and then we'd glue through the lace and then do our best. I would say that probably some of the most proper things on there were like, make sure that you're doing shading, make sure that like there's contour, or you're not just doing like one block of blue, like you're actually blending it in and then going over it and giving someone more depth. That was something with the makeup, was I wanted it to have a cartoony quality but be consistent.
The Koopas may have the muscle, but I have the love of the people.
And where there's love, there's money.
Brute strength is out, my boy. Everything is held together with sex and cash.
The way Kirk delivered that had so much power and history behind it, and so much personality and character. Like I didn't expect to like DDD as much as I did, and so it was really a shame when, the twist happens. I really enjoyed that scene, and I was really happy how the Mario and Tom fight scene came out as well. Like that was really fun to shoot.
After the awkwardness of the fight scene in episode 4, the crew made a conscious effort to improve their choreography in episode 5. Instead of an ambitious battle between 7 characters, they focused on a simpler, claustrophobic bar fight between Mario and Donkey Kong, which is visually superior, even if you can glimpse Mercer operating the B camera in certain shots.
What's he doing here?
Oh, Mario. What? Did you expect me to wait for you?
God, the costumes were just ridiculous. The Donkey Kong costume was the absolute worst. It was the jankiest costume. Same thing with Diddy Kong. The fight scene between Paul Duraso and Donkey Kong up in the bar. Oh my God. We actually really came to blows on that one. The fight was choreographed. It was phenomenally well done, but I was wearing a gorilla mask with ping pong balls for eyes. I couldn't see. And I think every time we did the scene, I hit him in the nose, hit him in the nose, hit him in the nose, hit him in the nose. So he was hurting. I was hurting him. And it got to the point where he got pissed. And when the end of the fight comes and he really hammered me with the hammer, it was bad. But like, we didn't realize how we were acting, but we didn't want to stop the scene. But we hurt each other so bad we needed to stop the scenes.
As you see in the blooper reel, there's a sequence where Donkey Kong's supposed to throw a barrel at Mario in the face, but he's not actually supposed to throw it because we cut. And Mario's supposed to put up his arms to block it, and he didn't. And the barrel slipped.
Oh no! The barrel that hit you in the face slipped out of my hand, but when you
came
down, that was
The barrel we filled with concrete to give it weight. that barrel, right? That was the day I met Carly,
the makeup artist.
Makeup artist, yeah. And when I pulled the nose off, I was like, "Say, you see the color of the blood on my face?" And she goes, "Yeah." I goes, and I pulled the nose off. I was like, "This is the color it's supposed to be," and I just emptied the nose.
By episode 6, Grafton's writing had become more ambitious. The stakes of the story grew larger with each subsequent episode, and he was balancing subtle video game parody with genuine character growth and shocking twists. Author Jordan Miner summarizes the series formula in a retrospective review of the series, writing, "There Will Be Brawl avoids the lazy, hacky pitfalls it could have easily stumbled into by fully committing to itself. There are gags, but its smart writing treats its characters and storylines completely seriously, which is maybe the funniest joke of all."
What a city, huh? Run by whimpering assholes like this. When we get the peach back, I'm gonna clean up. No more pills and no more mushrooms. I'm gonna do it this time. Those Yoshis? They were mine. Sold them to that fat fucker when the medical practice started to fall off. Needed the money to keep my own prescriptions filled. Some kind of hero, huh?
Times have changed. Can't do it alone anymore.
Alone? There are 2 Super Mario Brothers. Let's get out of this yuppie bullshit.
Mercer casting Duraso and me as brothers was, I don't know if he knew he was doing this, but Duraso and I were already good friends. He's a very dear friend in my heart. And it was very easy to play pretend that he was my brother.
We just hate each other with an intense passion. We're great friends and yet have always prodded each other. We're already kind of like brothers. I think Zach set up a forum on Brawl website long ago, and when we were on there, we would just tear each other apart, just absolutely just shred each other. And we're having fun. We remember meeting people at some of the expos who thought we really hated each other. You guys really don't like me. I'm like, wait, what? No. This is This is just us being us together.
The latter half of There Will Be Brawl puts far more focus on the psychology of the characters, such as expanding Police Chief Link into a fully realized and emotionally conflicted anti-hero.
I don't mind playing a bad guy. I don't mind playing a tough guy, you know what I mean? But to see him kind of develop this bitter moral kind of sensibility was like, oh yeah, now I can really sink my teeth into it. One of my favorite scenes that I got to do was a scene where Luigi and I are in the jail cell kind of talking, you know. That was sort of, I think, the turn for me in terms of, you know, Link has his eyes open wide and sees what's really going on and is starting to regret everything.
So this is what it felt like, huh?
What'd you do to me?
Watching your kingdom fester and rot. Watching your loved ones gag on the stench. Zelda and I, we watched Hyrule fall. Saw our banner swapped. Our culture neutered. But this kingdom of yours, shit. It's devouring itself.
But wouldn't it be the case if you were to do your job, protected the people? When you push them down, that just makes them want to rise up.
Hey, stay down. Maxim tomato extract is not easy to come by. I only have a couple left for myself as it is. You're a lucky man. If she had hit your vitals, you'd be laid up in the ER alongside one of my finest.
Ike. I had tried to save him.
None of us are the heroes we're supposed to be.
And I just felt like the day that we shot that, I remember thinking, wow, that was so connected. It was so good. It felt, you know, like, you know, the kind of stuff that an actor wants. Then I go back and I'm watching it and there's 2 bobby pins sticking up behind my ear.
I have a very different laugh, I think, with Tony. He's one of the funniest people I've ever met. When he had the part of Link, I was just like, are you kidding me? This tremendously funny individual is this just like despondent, just devastated character. But he played it so well. He's a great actor.
Episode 7 is about gay love. Marth's sexuality had originally been regulated to a brief gag of him dancing shirtless with his boyfriend Ike at a gay bar. A shift happened in episode 4 when Marth ascended to his secondary character, whose arc begins with Ike being injured in the alleyway battle. His loyalty to the police force is strained as Zelda blames him for Ike's hospitalization, and his grief is pushed to a breaking point as the other cops make homophobic jokes about Ike's critical condition. Mario breaks into the police station and uses the dungeon's boss key to release everyone held in the cells, accidentally releasing Kirby in the process. The inmates begin to overwhelm the police force, buying Luigi, Samus, and Pit time to escape. They are stopped by Isaac and Saki, who make the disastrous mistake of brutalizing Pit at the exact moment Captain Falcon arrives.
Unhand him! The frightened reach out. You cast them aside. The weak cry out. You raise your fists against them. Now the kingdom rises to repay you in kind. I may have held mercy for you, but there is only one fist that will bruise the face of my angel.
It was an incredibly long night. Everybody was sitting around, just sitting on the cement or laying down on piles of wood that were propped around for building. We were talking about the scene and how it was going, and Matt goes, "You guys are dead. Like, you are going to die. So when you see Captain Falcon coming through here, you have just done the unthinkable, and he is going to end you. So you need to react as if like the hand of God is coming to smite you for your wrongness." And while I'm hearing that, that's what it was. It was me figuring out, like, the love of his life. The love of his life was just, no one hurts, no one touches the angel. Everybody heard that everybody was like, oh, we're doing the Falcon Punch, Falcon Punch. So it was a lot of practicing, like, where's it going to come from? Is it going to come from the diaphragm? Is it going to come from the sternum? Punch. And Matt was like, we're going to go punch. I think the Hiroshima shadows on the back of the wall was a little bit much, but it was justly deserved. On the moment, it really wasn't a gay straight thing. In the scene, for what I read of it was for me, it was more of this person's true love was just disrespected, harmed by people who should know better. And this was no different than any other scene where somebody steps up to do the right thing to take out the bad guy. But we had fun.
Captain! Hush, Angel. There's no time. This way. Your brother was looking for you. Must have gotten lost in the chaos, but said to get you home safely.
We can't go home. The police.
The police are over, sweetheart. Run.
By the time of Episode 7's release, There Will Be Brawl had acquired an incredibly enthusiastic cult following, the majority of whom congregated on the official There Will Be Brawl forum, which by the end of the series had accumulated 900 users. Here, fans discussed episodes as they came out and also had the opportunity to regularly communicate with the cast and crew. Actor Gavin Niebel noted after Episode 7, "I think I'm more of a fan than actor at this point," a sentiment Matt Key shared. Raya, a former admin of the boards, told the Garage Dwelling Frogs, "During the show's run, the forum was very busy, with discussion threads racking up hundreds of replies. Speculation ran wild as we pored over every shot and every line looking for clues and trying to work out who the butcher was and solve the mystery. The hype was incredible when new episodes dropped, and when the finale aired, we had 195 people online at once. There was also a healthy social side to the forums, with discussions on various topics, games such as Mafia and roleplays, Secret Santas, and all sorts. It was a little piece of home on the internet, and even in the drought between episodes, there was always something to do and someone to talk to." In a thread dedicated to uncovering the true identity of the butcher, user Fobs McLeod correctly guessed the identity of the killers on page 3, but users opted to instead follow a red herring about Toon Link. The thread continued for 64 more pages, driven by a genuine belief that Grafton and Mercer were masterminds who had crafted a twist far above anything the viewers could come up with.
I had a very minor fan base before the series just for my cosplay work, but I wouldn't consider it like a fan base or like a solid community. Just people like, oh, I know that guy, or like, I like your costume. So this series kind of found its community out of nowhere, formed out of the ether, in a larger scope than any of us had expected. It was incredible. I grew up a fan. This is a fan work in the sense that I'm a fan of the work as much as, I'm a fan of what it's inspired by. So I was eager to be on the forums and to talk with people. I was eager to be part of the community because I'd been part of other fandom communities. And now that I was in this position, I felt that responsibility, but also it was really cool to be like, hey, no, I'm also a fan. And let's talk. And I'd love to answer questions and hang out with folks. I still like to do that today, though I have far less time and it's challenging on a different scale now, but I truly love interacting with community, and I love just people that are passionate about something and want to get together with other like-minded people and feel comfortable and safe and excited to be nerds.
You have the actors from the series, or the creators from the series, starting to fanboy over the costumes that the fans are wearing based on the characters. I had a guy who cosplayed as Captain Falcon and used to follow me around at conventions. And we're still friends to this day.
I actually based my costume off of Captain Falcon from There Will Be Brawl. Literally came up to this convention. I saw Damian because he's a very tall man. And I'm in full costume. And I walk up to him and I, in character, say, "Hey, are you Damian?" And he looked and he's like, "No, you didn't."
This is Damian Beurer. And this is Andy Bundy.
Yes, this is true.
And this is the captain.
This is
the unfortunate captain. What is wrong with you, sir?
Many things.
This was forced upon me. You did this.
I did it voluntarily. Yes.
Yes, There Will Be Brawl. My goodness, that was a lot of favors were accrued and spent on that film.
Yes.
Let me tell you.
I'm excited.
That was a fun day. He showed up in the costume, and it was hysterical, absolutely hysterical. I was like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" But it was everything I didn't know I needed.
Your brother's weird and he's creepy and he's dressed like me. What the fuck?
That's got to be every young person's dream to some extent, is to like have fans and interact graciously with them in your own mind. I remember it being kind of overwhelming, even though it wasn't. I don't mean to make it sound like there were thousands of people on this forum by any means, but there were like a couple that were like really cool that I really liked talking with. And there were some I felt were very antagonistic, you know, like for fans. But I didn't know how to like parse it. It was like, well, you're here talking to me, but it seems like you hate me and everything that you're talking about. That aspect of it was definitely wild, like weird thing that I never thought would happen, you know, was that I would have like a fan base of something that I created. And then the other flip side of that is have sort of like this hater base, hater fans.
The popularity of the series soon saw the cast and crew being invited to conventions in both the United States and Europe.
Alright, so I came over here from that line because this one looks shorter. So while you guys are all at this big long table and you're in the middle with your feathery Jesus pair, can we get sort of a Last Supper?
The reception was huge. So we started putting out episodes. So episodes were out while we were still filming. And I remember we did Anime Expo and fans were just like, you guys are doing a Nintendo web series? You can do that? We can do that? That's what kind of blew people's minds, is the YouTube was new. And oh my God, we can make stuff based on characters we love? What?
Throughout 2009 and 10, various cast and crew traveled to Anime Expo and MikomiCon in Los Angeles, MagFest in Alexandria, Virginia, IACon in Coventry, England, and Fanime in San Jose, California to promote the series.
That was actually up in Northern California, I believe, and we drove, and it was myself, Matt Key, Paul Duraso, and Matt Mercer in a car, and we had so much fun on that 7-hour drive. We like pulled over the side of the road and looked at stars because we were in Los Angeles and you don't see stars. We went to a restaurant that was literally called Zelda's. We stopped and like looked over mountains and got photos acting like fools and things like that. And so again, this kind of goes back to, you know, why you do the things you do are the people. And so my biggest memory from that event wasn't even the event itself, but the actual experience with the people that made it, those real candid kind of moments. Because that was just, even to this day, I remember that trip and it was so much fun.
Eventually, fans on the forum began to rally around the idea of getting There Will Be Brawl nominated for a Streamy Award, a ceremony dedicated to celebrating the growing prominence of online video. As There Will Be Brawl gained notoriety throughout the remainder of 2009, a nomination for the second annual Streamy Awards seemed within reach. As the ceremony drew closer, the cast, crew, and fans alike began submitting the series for categories such as Best Drama Web Series. But when the awards commenced on April 11, 2010, There Will Be Brawl received no nominations. Fans of Brawl expressed their outrage on the forums, while Grafton took the exclusion in stride, writing,
Anyway, awards ceremonies like this are a big PR commitment, and that was the one thing we were never good at here at There Will Be Brawl. I've also never had the impression that the organization who runs the Streamies were ever very interested in the show, which is fine, because it's a weird show for only the enlightened few, such as yourselves.
It felt at that time like any other award show where it's a popularity contest. It's obvious who's going to win. It's the ones that have the celebrities in it. You know, it's the ones that are created by the celebrities. And it's just like, at that time, we were just like young, scrappy, and giving it our damnedest. And I remember thinking, how were we not nominated? Is it because we don't have giant numbers? Is it because you didn't see us? Is it because, what's the fucking point? If we don't have a celebrity, either behind the scenes or on camera, then why are we here? It felt like the Streamies were supposed to be an answer to like those kids on YouTube who are trying to make digital content and just like shoestring budgets and giving it their hardest and like creating art all on their own apart from the studio system or studio support. That was the intended spirit of the Streamies, and it immediately went out the window. None of us on the Brawl project were upset. You know, it would have been nice to have had the validation of an award. We didn't like feel robbed or anything like that. We were just like, oh, that's what you're doing? Oh, that sucks. Okay. Like, whatever. You know, we were Luigi. We were overlooked. That's okay.
When Grafton finished the script for episode 8, he realized that the runtime was approaching 45 minutes long. With the approval of The Escapist, the script was divided into 2 separate episodes, with episode 8 being from Mario's point of view and episode 9 being from Luigi's. Throughout its run, There Will Be Brawl recycled as many extras as possible to give the background life, pulling from the crew, friends, and whatever actors whose costumes concealed their faces, filling the background with toads, cops, vagrants, and Fly Guy. This practice culminated in episode 8, when Olimar gathers the city's impoverished immigrant population to form a death cult to feed to eldritch gods. Fox and Falco were set to return for a scene after appearing in episode 4. However, Falco's original actor Chris Fleischman was unable to appear on set, so composer Steph Stigma stepped in to take over as Falco, with Fleischman dubbing over Stigma in post.
I was on set to play one of the homeless cultists in the alleyway, right? But when I showed up on set and they found out he had gotten stuck in traffic somewhere just out of town and he just couldn't make it to set. And when I got there, one of the producers had addressed me by the wrong name at first, and I was like, "Oh, no, that's not me. I'm the composer." And he's like, "Oh, well, you look like the same actor. Can you do an Eastern European accent?" And I was like, "Sure, yeah, no problem." And they're like, "All right, let's get you into makeup." That was a fun shoot. It was like 15 hours, and oh my God, Matt was just so exhausted at the end of that shoot. You just see the weariness on his face. But yeah, he's got a crazy work ethic for sure. For the longest time, I just thought he was always in actor mode. Back when I was younger and cynical and distrustful of joy and things like that, I give him crap like Matt, come on, where's you? Where's the you? You stop putting up all these characters and shit. And it's like, oh no, he really is just he's that genuine when he's very empathetic and sensitive, and all of those characters and voices are not. He's not hiding from anything. I just think he's just tapped in, and it's just like the radio dial's just always.
The penultimate episode ratchets up the suspense. Link is stabbed in the back and left for dead. Captain Falcon flees the city, and Bowser's castle is destroyed. But the crux of the plot is a solemn confrontation between Luigi and Bowser.
So a lot of the times what would happen is we'd have somebody who'd be like, "Oh, I have pieces of this costume, I'll just wear it." Yeah, so Bowser is all old costume pieces that I had. I think it was the top was a bleach costume, and then the bottoms were Hakama pants from a Princess Mononoke costume that I had, or Eboshi. And then oh my God, his prosthetic was from Bad Dragon or Naughty Dragon, some dragon sex toy shop. But they literally made dragon and reptilian sex toys, but they also had a really great reptile face prosthetic, and that's what we used for Brawl. But it was for people who wanted to dress up like dragons and reptiles and bang. And the prosthetic was really nice and not tremendously expensive. And that was kind of key for us. We knew that Bowser had to look like Bowser.
Mario always thought you'd resurface.
I knew as soon as the pocket monster clawed his way to power out amongst the immigrants. Before the penguin perverted the streets. Before anyone had even heard the name Shadow Dawn. I knew this was no longer a place for old-fashioned brawlers like your brother and me. Years of terror. Years of respect. All shadows now.
Bowser dies fending off a legion of demonic Mr. Gaiman watches, allowing Luigi to escape. But when he returns home, he finds that the Pokemon trainer has been killed by a pipe bomb sent by Ganondorf. Grafton's original script for episode 9 ended with 4 short sentences briefly mentioning that a song would play during Red's funeral, but did not specify which song he wanted. A separate page for the eulogy was written, expanding the blurb into the series' most emotional moment.
I don't know what to say. We thought it would be best if he said it himself.
Like, I had to go off into a separate room, and I had saved, there was this meme picture of this, like, there's this meme picture of this, like, dying kitten and, like, a story about it. The picture of the cat probably doesn't match the story, but every time I read it, it would make me sob. So I just had to get in that headspace of something that was genuinely deeply sad to me, and then came back in for the funeral scene of the character, because it's filming these things is very silly, or a bunch of adults playing pretend and make believe. This was one of those okay, I actually want to seriously make sure that I'm acting for this one, at least for this scene.
I want to be the very best, like no one ever was. To catch them is my real test. To train them is my cause. It's you and me. I know it's my destiny.
Okay, so when I first heard about this, it was this joke. It was, hey, let's do a dystopian Mario Brothers. That'll be funny. And Matt and Zach were like, yeah, I'll do 3-episode miniseries. It'll be a great fun time. And then 3 episodes turned into 6. And then 6 turned into 8. And then we're like, oh my god, we need a 9th episode. And then it was an hour long, so we said, okay, let's make it 10 episodes. So in the beginning, it was, oh, cute, a little miniseries, and the internet will go, wee! And then it turned into the stuff that really is going to make our careers when we have our portfolios and our reels, and we'll say, yeah, by the way, we had one of the greatest web series of all time.
I remember when we shot the last episode, because it was like this big deal. Like, we had this big final shoot. We had a ton of, like, it was like an open call. Like, anybody who wanted to come, just come on down and be an extra. A couple of them brought, like, somebody brought a boomerang from Australia with like a Triforce on it. Like, just, it was so cool. Somebody had some like art that was like printed out of Mario escaping the prison and stuff. It was just awesome. Like, it was so cool to like meet those people.
I came out here from San Diego because I couldn't pass up this opportunity to be an extra in There Will Be Brawl. And I'm a really big fan of what the cast and the crew and everybody here is doing, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be a part of it. And I mean, why wouldn't I come out here, man?
You know what? It's funny. So Superpower Beatdown, we have 600 million views, 3 million followers. People know it. People are aware of it. When we first started it, and I went to a couple people and said, hey, we want to drag race some Batmobiles through the desert. Do you want to come and film with us? It was very difficult to get anybody who wanted to be a part of that. A couple million likes and follows later, and then all of a sudden everybody goes, huh, maybe they got something. And unfortunately, that happens a lot. So by the end of this series, we'd already put out like 3 or 4 episodes. Everybody wanted to be on it. It started with the core group of friends, and it just expanded into this gigantic Nintendo verse. So that I'll point out just that one last scene that we shot. It took place down in Santa Ana, California, which is like an 1.5-hour drive south from LA. So you've got people who are driving an 1.5 hours south all the way past Disneyland. So that's just the people who are dressed up as characters. Now you got the people who are doing crafty, you got the makeup people, you've got the people who are bringing all the props and costumes down. So they were up since like 5 o'clock in the morning, coming all the way down. So they're up, sun goes down at 7 p.m. So we have to make sure people are there by at least 4 o'clock to make sure that their makeup, wardrobe, and everything are set. So we've got about 80 people we have to make sure that their costumes and whatnot are okay. Cars have to be certain, so shots have to be figured out. We all went down there raw. So you've got folks who are there up at 5 a.m. and we filmed until about 5. So that was wrapping at 5. That didn't include cleaning, putting all the costumes away. People were there working almost 14, 15, 16-hour days. They were exhausted. And on top of that, working their normal jobs too. So we'd have to wait for someone to get off work, go home, shower, come in, get into costume, get their makeup, and we'd film from like 9 o'clock at night until 3 in the morning. Everybody be head to bed, be in bed by 4:30, up at 6 and at their jobs at 8 or 9, and we'd do it all over again. So people were killing themselves. And on top of that, even Zach was going to school full time. So he was going to school and working and doing this. So a lot of times we wouldn't see Zach, or if we saw Zach, he'd be in a corner asleep with a bucket over his head. It was intense. It was really intense.
Amazing how cloudy the memory is of that night. We were definitely glad it was over. But like, for example, one of the last days of filming was just awful. Just awful. You're starting at 9 p.m. and working until sunrise, and it's freezing. And you're standing by the Kelvin lamps to warm up, and then you have to go away from the Kelvin lamps to do your scene, and then you're freezing. After a while, that exhaustion just grates on you. And so they're fun memories, but we were very happy that it was over.
This is so cold and awful, and we hate this, and we want this to be done. But look at us like making this incredible thing together and sitting around and warming ourselves by this one lone little bitty heater that our friend Tom went and bought and provided for us. And the enduring hardship together breeds stronger bonds. So since so many of our friendships were forged in that sort of fire, maybe that's the kind of crucible that we always go back to.
We're actually shooting episode 10 right now. More specifically, we are shooting the brawl that the name promises. There will be brawl. Not anymore. There was a brawl. It just happened.
One particularly ambitious scene involved Mario, empowered by a superstar, simultaneously battling 7 separate people all in one long continuous take as an homage to Park Chan-wook's thriller film Old Boy. It was the final scene Duraso would film for the series, as he was scheduled to fly home to Oklahoma in the morning for Christmas. The filming was intense and led to Duraso breaking his finger.
No, we did a few rounds previous to the shoot to get the choreography, because I remember going to some really nice Wing Chun studio with Will and those guys as we kind of worked it out. Do you remember your words of encouragement to me on this one?
I don't. Please recall.
They kept having me rehearse. Like, Will was used to professional fighters, which obviously I'm not built that way. They're all martial artists. All those guys were. And he just kept running it before, and I'm like, I'm gassed. And we haven't even started filming. One of the guys does a butterfly kick, and he actually wore steel-toed boots for this. Like, the outside was steel, and he just catches me right upside the head. Oh, and now we're shooting, and I had no energy. And Mercer walks out. I was like, Paul, I'm gonna need you to be a little tougher in this. And I just looked at him, I was like, you motherfucker. I was like, get off my set. And that was all I needed for like one more take. I was like, that's it. I'm kicking the shit out of everybody. Fucking hit me. I'm just, no, get out.
What's up?
What's going on?
I'm videotaping you.
Oh, great. This is just lunch. Is that? I mean, I'm not hurt at all. I was invincible.
I mean, the whole thing was such an undertaking that I feel so bad about it, and everyone that was involved. My main mental health memory of Brawl is feeling awful that I had them film so much shit. Like, I wasn't the one filming. Like, I was on set almost every time. It wasn't my job. I was just sort of in the way. I mean, it was a labor of love from like everyone. I feel so blessed. Like, all these people came together and really worked their asses off for it. But I also feel so bad that I just didn't write shorter scripts, is I didn't realize how out of control a monologue could go. I'm like, hey, this is just a paragraph. It's fine. And then it's a 5-minute fucking, this poor person has to sit there and talk for 5 straight minutes.
And it was one of those things where up to this point, this is my first really debut as a director, and I don't know what I had got myself into at that point. It's freezing. And I'm like, this isn't going to work. This isn't going to work. And then partway through the evening, I'm outside in this parking lot, and we had over 50 fans show up. Some people drove cross state lines, like drove from way over in Arizona to be an extra in this episode. We had one guy fly out from Australia to be part of this episode. And like, it was this one point where I realized all of a sudden, this is the power of a community. This is the power of good people working together, and then having all these people show up to make this possible, and me being at the center of it at this moment was just one of the most touching experiences of my life. And I really realized the power in friendship and creative endeavors, and it was incredible. It really changed me.
Yeah, I'll second that thought, definitely.
The Escapists announced that the finale would air at noon on Friday, December 19th, and had put out a series of articles promoting the release. But this release date was an impossibility, as filming on the final episode wrapped at 5:36 a.m. on December 16th.
I think I was going on at that point like 48 hours without sleep, and had to drive home from Anaheim, and like had probably drinking 4 Monster Energy drinks and was blasting Lady Gaga in the car just to stay awake to get home.
Episode 10's runtime was 35 minutes long, and the script demanded the highest number of visual effect shots of any episode. In order to meet the deadline, Mercer needed to complete all of post-production in 3 days.
Matt and Grafton were like really adamant to make sure that like all the episodes came out when we were saying they were going to come out. Matt would just like edit like crazy. There was this one time, I think he was picking up footage from someone in the crew, and he had been editing, I feel like for 3 days straight. And we were driving back home, and he was like so sleep deprived that he thought he saw a tumbleweed come through the windshield. And he was like, did you just see that tumbleweed? And I was like, what? He was like, he was just so sleep deprived, like getting all the editing done. It was insane.
The amount of post production that he had to do for those like last 3 episodes, I was like, oh, you're going to die. He holed up in an apartment with the other 2 editors that he was working with at that time. And he was awake editing, sitting in his chair for like 48 hours straight. Breaks here and there, but no time to sleep. There were a few of us who like just kept looking in on him and checking in with each other to be like, hey, I was gonna go check in on Mercer and the post team. You know, after I got off work, have any of you been over there? Like, how are they doing? And this one particular night, I texted Mercer, was like, hey, you know, I'm coming over after work. I want to see how you're doing and see if I can like get dinner for you or something. He was like, yeah, if you could, you know, grab whatever dinner you can and bring some Monster Energy drinks. I need to be awake, and I'm falling asleep at the computer. So I came over, got him everything. His computer, or the desk where he was like doing all of his editing, and he had 2 screens up, if I remember correctly. There was like a small apartment window right in front of him. I was like, hey, here's your monster, here's your dinner. And he said something about the man who was watching them from the window. What are you talking about? And he's like, yeah, like the guy in the window, I wish he'd leave me alone. And I was like, Mercer, there's not a guy in the window. You okay, dude? Like, you might need to just like let this be a day late to the Escapist. You should probably sleep. You know, he didn't take my advice because Mercer is a consummate professional.
December 19th came and went with no upload, and fans were quick to notice, taking to Facebook and the There Will Be Brawl forums to inquire about the delay. On December 20th, fans would have their questions answered when JoEllen Conway posted on the forums, clarifying the delay and showing just how far Mercer was willing to push himself to complete the series. Quote, seriously, Matt just got home from editing all day at Jordan's. He's been gone for 4 days doing nothing but editing with no sleep. And now his body is literally forcing him to rest. I have not seen my boyfriend in this much stress and disarray since we have been dating in our 4 years together. His back spazzed on him just sitting in the chair today. When he came home limping, he set up his computer up to start editing again and was saying over and over again, I have to finish it. He collapsed on our bedroom floor. I massaged his back hoping it would ease his pain. When he tried to get back up, he was in excruciating pain. He cannot even lift his own body up to the computer chair, so I am forcing him to rest. It's impossible for one man to edit an almost feature-length film in a few days. He's killing himself. I put a pillow under his head and hope that his back is better when he wakes up. Matt is so loyal to you guys that he's not even taking care of his own body in order to make sure that you guys are happy with his work. As his girlfriend, I'm respectfully telling you guys to chill out and support Matt by letting him rest. He deserves it more than anyone I know. I know that as soon as he gets back up, he will be finishing it up. Thank you.
So many people, good people, came together for this project, many of which are still dear friends to me this day. Matt Key plays Luigi, is still one of my best friends. We met on this project. But all these people were donating their time, their craft, their skill towards an absurd idea for an internet video series. And I couldn't let them down. I wanted this to be as good as I could possibly make it for all of them. I wanted to make this as good as possible for everyone who believed in us. And I was willing to sacrifice as much of myself as I needed to get it done. I do push myself too hard always. That's always been something that I'm still struggling with. But never to that degree again, hopefully. That was too much. It was, our final episode ended up being like 35 minutes long or something like that. And I just ended up having to go like 70, I think I almost went 70 something hours without sleep almost. I began hallucinating. I passed out at the computer and then dreamed, and I dreamed myself editing an entire scene that doesn't exist in the final episode. It was a whole nother sequence with like Ganondorf and Zelda and an extended facet of their story, and went into the history of the fall of Hyrule and like demigod ascension narrative that wasn't in there. Like it was very weird and kind of almost like Seraphim Ascension sort of a theme to it. It does not make sense. It was a weird dream, but I remember going back and being like, I don't know if this scene works in the final edit. It's not there. It doesn't exist. That was in my brain. And to the point where even to this day, I remember it part of the series, but it doesn't exist. It was just fully a hallucinated dream of a part of the series. Anyway, don't do what I did. Learn from my mistakes. I went way too far on that. I threw out my back from sitting too long editing. I definitely pushed myself way too hard, but I also hate disappointing people.
Mercer spent the next few days lying on his back, recovering from a pinched nerve. Jordan O'Leary and Christian Bretz carried on the editing process, and the series finale was delayed to January 1st, 2010.
And I remember being like, Jesus, like I didn't understand what was happening. Like I didn't understand how big it was. I feel like I should shout out to Matt Key, especially as the lead, because I do remember, and it was something that didn't click in my dumb college boy brain at the time, right? And he just pointed out very diplomatically that he came in to audition for like a 5-minute web series and ended up being on the hook for however long it is. And that's insane. Like I was like, oh my God, you're right. So triple shout out to Mackie, Mercer as well, of course. They like really bore the brunt, I think, of that.
Now you see, Luigi, the worth of heroes. You see sacrifice for what it is. Better for us to accept that our days are gone. But alas, you remain. You learn well from your princess, it seems. But once I took her, you awoke. You rose, and everyone around you dusted off the shriveled sacks and began to fight once again. But for what, Luigi? What is left?
Luigi ascends Nintendo's ivory tower, where he confronts Ganondorf, while Mario leads his army of the oppressed into battle against the remaining Koopa faction. The episode is a bloodbath. Link, Zelda, and Fox, and dozens of combatants are slaughtered in dramatic fashion, concluding with Mario killing the Game & Watch demons, who have formed into an octopus-like apparition. Ganondorf disappears in the madness, and Luigi follows him to the Butcher's lair. There, Luigi finds the taxidermied skins of the Butcher's victims, Dedede, Mewtwo, Pichu, Roy, and Peach. The identity of the Butcher is revealed, Ness and Lucas, who Ganondorf has been using as psychic assassins.
There was a different killer initially. It was just going to be Ganondorf. That was the killer, right? And then like at some point, especially after we filmed him, like we were just so stoked to do that. And then once he did it and he's so amazing, it was like, well, he can't just be the kill. Like, you know, like obviously he needs to be very integral, but it seems like there needs to be an extra reveal. And this is actually, I think, is probably pretty typical of like a younger screenwriter's ambitions, where it was like, okay, it'll be this really fucked up head game where Ganondorf inspires Luigi by having him see these kids playing in episode 4, I think it is. And then that ultimately ends up being, he like played him so hard. He got so deep into his head. But then the twist being that the kids were actually out of control. But yeah, I think there was this very, like I had this very grand dream that it would like mind game elements was like really above and beyond. And I don't know, maybe it was, maybe somebody thinks it is. I think it was probably like a little convoluted. It was a bit greedy of me, I think. Though I do like it overall, the Ness Lucas reveal stuff. I think it probably could have been massaged a little. One thing actually though, that I do not like, and this is obviously 100% my fault. In screenwriting, which is very formulaic, you want to have this deep down moment at the end where the character gets real, like goes one last time, digs in there to their soul and triumphs because of something they've learned earlier, or, you know, something very important and like essential to that character. And there's like Luigi's journey at the very end is like very, I believe, passive. Like he's just sort of like running up the stairs and like there's fights, he like runs into people, but like he himself isn't like, here's what I'm gonna do. Like I think his story kind of ends when he takes off his coat in the episode before that. And then the last episode he doesn't really drive it, and that irritates me.
Kirby kills Ganondorf, hijacking the role of the true final boss. Trapped next to Kirby and the psychic children, Luigi ignites the red Pikmin that he acquired from the bomb that killed the Pokemon trainer, setting off a massive explosion.
Somehow Luigi survives.
Somehow I'm a badass.
Less than a dozen brawlers live through the night.
It was such a small thing, but I did really like, there's like the flashback scene where you see Mario happy for the first time. And then there's also there's a scene where Mario and Luigi Mario's crying. Those moments were very strong to me and like simple. Like that's what I'm saying. Simple and strong moments. That's what you need. Things don't need to be overly complicated all the time because that just strips away from the emotion.
The final scene of There Will Be Brawl begins with Luigi and Mario visiting Mewtwo's orphanage, which has been reconfigured into a shelter following the demon's rampage.
Still here, Captain?
I already forgot what it was to be a hero once. Maybe we all did, huh?
There's a phone call for you, Luigi.
Hello?
And so your demons were slaked. And so you closed that maw.
Kirby.
Well, Luigi, have you satisfied your princess at last?
I was satisfied them of both.
Kirby, satisfied with Luigi's answer, lets him go, revealing that he has eaten the psychic children and Smash Bros. Creator Masahiro Sakurai, implying Kirby has somehow infiltrated reality. In the final shot, Nintendo producer Shigeru Miyamoto enters the room. Grafton confirmed in a Q&A that in the final scene Kirby was originally meant to be accompanied by Rob wearing the Triforce, but both props were forgotten because
we filmed that scene at the very end of a very long shoot and everyone was dying in real life. Not even I know what the fuck is going on anymore.
Like, it was weird enough in conception. The initial conception was just that Kirby's still around and he eats Sakurai, his own creator, or he has eaten him or whatever, because this is a deep cut. I think it was GameFAQs was the most prevalent like home base for a game community. The big like go-to meme was just saying Sakurai, like in all caps, you know. So that's what I was going for with that final ending. It was like Sakurai's final, you know, untimely demise. There was this aspect of it that I was like really interested in as a young, perhaps pretentious screenwriter. I really love in stories how there's kind of like, there's the story, which involves the characters. And then there's sort of like an aspect above them, like kind of like a godhood where you don't really know what's going on, but there's like something much bigger behind the scenes or something going on. And in my head, Rob represented that because he was like such a weird, like occultic figure. And the Triforce obviously being this like holy symbol for them. And so so it was Kirby was going to, it was that he was usurping, he was eating Sakurai, he was eating his creator and like ascending to like godhood kind of. That was the idea, which is not at all in the scene that exists. Yeah, I guess there were just some things missing that didn't like communicate what the hell was going on. And like, I think without those things, it just comes across as very nonsensical. With those things, still nonsensical, but at least it's like, hopefully would have come across as like there's an idea here. Like, what was I doing? Why did I want that to be the cliffhanger?
The finale was mostly well received, as fans flooded into the escapist forums to praise the epic scope of the series, though the reveal of the Butcher's identity and the finale scene with Kirby split the audience. An otherwise positive review noted that, without a substantial knowledge of Nintendo esoterica, much of the plot becomes lost. Reception on the There Will Be Brawl forums was universally positive. Fans were energized by the release of the final episode and discussed the possibility of a second season, but Grafton and Mercer had made it clear for months that they had no interest in a continuation. In August 2010, Mercer posted on the There Will Be Brawl forum,
"While there is no sequel planned, there is some discussion of a possible There Will Be Brawl related project. I can't say anything, but there is a possibility that this isn't the last you've seen of our dark world of Nintendo."
That July, There Will Be Brawl began to air on the online video network Machinima in what was intended to be part of a larger partnership with the network.
We were actually in talks with Machinima about doing an animated prequel to the series that would go over the original Kirby murders, and we had designs sketched up, and we were going to possibly work with a small independent animator, and like a lot of things, Machinima fell through. That is how the world of internet media goes sometimes.
How far did that deal actually make it before it collapsed?
Not very, because I have no idea what would have happened to it, except because it was going to be animated. So I knew we could like do whatever, you know, theoretically. It was really important to me to see that like the Nintendo world was like the games, like at first. Like it was really bright and happy and everyone was fucking thrilled. And then to see the collapse of it was like going to be the through line and see how it became downtown LA. But the first episode was Meta Knight chasing Kirby, and it involved Kirby at the Fountain of Dreams. I think like there was some ritual or something, and the Fountain of Dreams started spewing blood instead of its regular rainbow water, and that part was sweet. From there, that like opened a portal. Kirby escaped, and then Meta Knight went after him, and like that was gonna be where everything collapses. If I remember right, I had like I think just that first script, and then just nothing happened, which is 99.9% of every LA interaction. One of my favorite quotes about creativity, being a creative, some writer on SNL, and the line was, "A finished product is a minor miracle." And I was like, that is completely true.
We're discussing ideas of possibly putting out a DVD, not selling it, because we can't, because it's Nintendo. But, you know, for a generous donation of $10 or so, we could send you a free gift that happens to include a DVD.
Plans to release There Will Be Brawl on DVD and free it from the confines of 240p YouTube hell were foiled when the hard drive containing the footage was corrupted. A full recovery was possible, but the cost to repair the drive and then burn the DVDs was not feasible, as the creators were worried about flying too close to the sun that is Nintendo's copyright. Their fears had precedent. In October 2009, director Joel Musk released the feature-length Zelda fan film Hero of Time. Musk had been working on the project for 5 years, and within 2 months, Nintendo forced Musk to remove the film from the internet.
One step and the battle is born. No road, but I want you to gather its storm today. The end begins.
On March 13th, 2010, the cast, crew, and fans of There Will Be Brawl gathered at the Good Hurt nightclub in Los Angeles for the official rap party, featuring live music from the Mega Man-themed rock band, the Megas.
So, we love you. We're gonna party for you, we're gonna drink for you, we're gonna dance for you, we're gonna sing for you. Might get our freak on for you.
To mark the occasion, and to make a pun, Steph Stigma had the cast record an in-character rap song.
Yo, I'm a Luigi, the brother in the green. I was singing on the street with my beats till some bitches had to fuck with me. Got a rep to keep. I'm stepping on the goombas till I bust a wing with a P. I'm the greedy Guido bastard, the master. I'm bigger, stronger, faster. I laugh first, during, and after a profitable disaster. Send my poke crew to your crib and put your legs in plaster. There's gonna be a brawl, motherfuckers. Shit ain't right in the mushroom kingdom. There's gonna be a brawl.
The rap was the last official piece of There Will Be Brawl media ever created. After the rap party, the props and costumes were split amongst the cast and crew. Jenny Newman hung on to Samus's Zero suit for 3 years before selling it in an eBay auction in 2013. While advertising the listing, she discovered that the Brawl forums were still active long after the series had ended. A small group of regulars kept the forums on live support for almost 9 years when the forums were shuttered for good, leading the remaining Brawlers, as they had dubbed themselves, to migrate to Discord, where they remain active to this day. According to the former admin Raya, in that time, we have seen members go to university, graduate, have careers, get married, and start families. People have traveled to different countries and continents to meet each other, and have even been guests at their weddings. The TWBB fandom is no longer just a fandom. It's a community that has spanned both the years and the world. I hold the Brawlers as some of my dearest friends. And the catalyst that brought all of us together was a little online series that dared to ask the question, did Princess Peach like them tall and thin or short and fat? The majority of the props came into the possession of Matt Key. Kirby's papier-mâché body slowly deteriorated in Key's garage for the next decade until the paper carrion was disposed of. Key salvaged the eyes, keeping one for himself and putting the other in a small glass display case, which was gifted to Mercer with the inscription, tall and thin or short and fat.
Kirby can't hurt us anymore. We can't get them back together or else Kirby will reoperate. And then we'll have to make a second season. We've had 16 years. They've made new characters and we can put them in horrible situations that are not safe for work and then murder them horribly at the end. It'll be great. Yeah, but this time so many of us are professionals now. And I don't know if it would. I don't think Brawl would work with our schedules at all. Like, there is no way. That'll protect us. Our professional obligations will protect us from a second season of Brawl.
It was amazing, and I wish it could have kept going on. Like, it was kind of sad that it had ended. It was such a good time. I mean, it could have really gotten to some like soap opera-y kind of, The Shield or The Wire or Sopranos-y kind of type of thing. I would have signed up for it all day long.
I wonder if something like that will ever happen again. I mean, obviously Matt is a very busy and very very famous with Critical Role, but would be cool to do something like that again.
In 2010, Tony Rago and Kirk Daedrick co-created the mobster comedy web series Whacked, described as Abbott and Costello meets The Sopranos.
Doing Whacked, I really appreciated the escapists and what they were able to help. We really could have used something like that behind. It was putting up Whacked was a lot of begging of favors and trying to just inspire people. Again, here's this thing and here's my ideas and here's the script and please, please, please.
Around the same time, Becky Young attempted to pull together an improv team based around nerd culture. She recruited Mercer and Key, but also talent from her own friend group, such as actor Marisha Ray.
That group ever take off from there?
It did not.
See, again, like I said, in Hollywood, it was very much like try everything you can with the people that you enjoy working with and just throw it at the wall and see what sticks. We had multiple improv, sketch comedy things during that time that lived somewhere on the interwebs.
Shortly after the rap party, Grafton developed an original concept. Alongside director Christian Bretz, he created Famous on the Internet, or FOTI for short. The concept was flagrantly semi-autobiographical, as FOTI centered around Chance Savage, creator of the fictitious web series Splatter High.
A lot of people think of the internet as the awkward domain of the irrelevant amateur who can't cut it in Hollywood, and we can't wait to prove him wrong.
One of the characters in FOTI was based off of Becky. What's so funny is I was having read the script, I could point to every person that each character was based off of, where I go, oh, that's a little bit of him, that's a little bit of her. I kind of think people figured that out too, but it was dead on. It was dead on for what it was.
An episode was filmed and a trailer was released in August 2010, and then Famous on the Internet was never heard from again. Even for those involved, the reason for cancellation eluded them.
I don't know what happened to that, honestly. And I can remember when Brawl ended, like saying to Matt and Zach, oh my God, guys, if you ever make anything else, please let me be involved. You guys are great. And that came along and I filmed somewhere out on the west side, but then I never heard another thing about it. And I was like, what the heck happened to that? Unless you have some sort of significant financial backing, you're really just sort of relying on this collective kind of, hey kids, we can put on a show type of spirit. And that's really hard to get. And honestly, that is sort of the thing that I felt that first night shooting on Brawl. That was like, this is magic. You don't often see this.
But I just remember being like, what's going on? What's going on? What's going on? And it was hold on. And then radio silence. And then it just kind of disappeared.
What a cool, but depressing, but exciting learning experience. It's a terrible idea now. Like, I was really excited about it because there was this big schism in Hollywood or in LA, just like the newness of YouTube and everything. And like internet celebrities was insane. Like it was everywhere and no one knew what to make of it. Like it was wild. Like it was such a weird, lawless time. It was like we were trying to like pretend we were cool, or at least give this impression, at least to ourselves, that we led exciting lives. But obviously, in reality, we weren't. The through joke through the whole thing was these characters really wanted to seem like A-listers and impress their parents and just, like feel good about themselves. And they're all there together. And it was very heartwarming trying to make it, I mean, now, again, that's like the oldest, least interesting idea. But at the time, Entourage was also super popular. So I was like, it's Entourage meets The Guild. We filmed the pilot, and for a number of reasons, it just wasn't correct. Like number of reasons, all of which are mine, all of which are my fault. Because comedy, first of all, super hard. So there was a rhythm to it that I hadn't found yet. It just didn't find its like traction when I'm like have an idea for a project and I talk to somebody about it, or I talk to people about it. You can tell when they're like really, like genuinely interested. Like this is clicking. They are drawn in. And I remember that was Famous on the Internet just didn't have that. Like whatever was so interesting about it in my head was not translating. We're working on it for the BBC, which seems weird. When that finally dried up, it was like, okay, it's time to move on. But we took what we filmed and we made a really cool trailer out of it, which is pretty common, I think. It was supposed to be very visually cool, like just very visually, because up to then, internet stuff was very it just looked homemade, which was, I think, a huge part of what people like about internet stuff. And then we had this awesome trailer that was like, this looks visually excellent. And then I remember like a year later watching it, and the landscape had changed so much. Like internet videos, the quality or budget behind them had like increased so much that it didn't even look didn't even look cool anymore. Like it looked like just sort of middling. Like I remember telling Mary Kate Wiles, she was on a show called Squaresville, which is like excellent, but very simple. It's very charmingly simple. And that show looks fucking amazing. This show that's not even trying to look like bombastic looks so good, so beautiful. And our show had been like run down by that time. Everything moved so fast.
It would be years before Grafton returned to the world of online video. In 2013, Grafton was at the epicenter of the burgeoning Game of Thrones fandom, where he saw a Twitter account role-playing as the character Marjorie Tyrell. The concept of a Game of Thrones character using modern social media gave Grafton the idea to remix the Song of Ice and Fire in the style of a teen drama from the WB network. The result was Grafton and Mercer's most successful collaboration, School of Thrones, whose first episode sits at 3.4 million views.
You've seen this kind of thing before?
What's the deal with a little brother on brother? Kinda hot.
This is serious business, Ginger Stark.
Nice weave, by the way.
I've spent my life transferring from school to school. Prep, private, public. They've all collapsed on out-of-control prom nights. I cannot witness that again. I must conquer this school. With flame.
Zach was also deeply obsessed with Game of Thrones, like the book series. And I think this needed to happen or he was going to explode. It was funny, after There Will Be Brawl, it was like, I'm not going to do another web series. I'm not going to direct another web series. And then years go by and he's like, do you want to direct another web series? I'm like, maybe. Learned to not do everything ourselves. Pay your actors, now that we can, a little bit at least. Working with a larger production crew and reaching out to people we'd met since who wanted to be a part of it. We worked in collaboration with, I think it was the UCLA Film Club, for both, helped us find locations, and we were able to shoot on campus for quite a bit for it. But we also made sure that we didn't bite off more than we could chew. We could definitely be sure that we weren't doing crazy effect shots all the time. Other than the intro for the series, which was masterfully done, there wasn't a lot of intense necessity when it came to set pieces. So we could shoot it all on a handful of locations within the same smaller area. We could do it on a budget and a time schedule that was much more viable.
School of Thrones received attention from mainstream news outlets such as The Daily Beast and Entertainment Weekly. It was also endorsed by Jon Snow's official actor Kit Harington, who commented, "The funny high school one where they're all running for prom king. I like that one."
School of Thrones is like my favorite thing that we've done. Like, it's just my heart thing. Like, it's just so sweet. Yeah, I mean, we could talk about that forever. And it was cool because it was kind of the opposite of Brawl, where it took something very dark and made it very wholesome and sweet. And it was very exciting that that Kit Harington shouted it out and like on Twitter, like the actors from Game of Thrones were tweeting our actors. Like, it was so cool.
It did really, really well numbers wise. Hilariously, financially, through a misunderstood contract signed for the series, I funded the majority of this series myself, and hopefully on the back end we would recoup that cost, maybe with a little extra, about 10 grand in the hole when all was said and done on School of Thrones. I've made so much negative money on web series. It's great.
I think it's about twice your estimation for your feature-length Nintendo fan film. And
yep. So it all just keeps growing from here.
It's like 15 minutes.
I know, but we want to make sure we paid everybody. So we paid everyone for the time. We got everyone fed well. We, got permits. Like, we did everything by the book this time. Everything we didn't do with There Will Be Brawl, we made sure to do everything by the book this time. That also made it very expensive. And had we not been bamboozled a bit on our contract negotiation, it would have been a different issue. But that was our big lesson to pull from that project. But I still look back on it fondly and still very proud of it. So
when I found out it wasn't gonna happen, it was rough. It was a rough little week. I remember walking around in circles around this thing at the campus, just trying to figure out, is there a way to make it happen? And I was really bummed because I really loved working with everyone on it. I just really loved it. But at the same time, I was like, I should probably be focusing on things. I should start focusing on things that are my intellectual property and not be beholden to the franchises I'm not really supposed to be playing around with.
Time Magazine.
And Kit Harington.
They both love School of Thrones.
And there'll be more of that someday.
Mm-hmm. And in the meantime...
It's called Muzzled the Musical. Now, we've been working on developing this project for over 3 years now, and we're finally at the point where we can bring it to you guys on Kickstarter, of which the link is below.
Grafton's final web series was Muzzled the Musical, a fantasy comedy with musical numbers composed by Jason Charles Miller.
Sandra, that's a high not to feel. But did you know that when it snows, my eyes become large and the light that you shine can't be saved?
Muzzled is set in the kingdom of Serenadia, where singing grants magical powers. Muzzled follows Malthalia, a Blackheart who has broken the magical brand which stopped her from singing, as she plots a rebellion against the ruling magical princesses.
I'm gonna pose as a princess and then infiltrate their great royal society. Tear it down from the inside, no more muzzles, will be free.
Look at these two guys. They made this thing.
Mercer developed the world of Muzzled with Grafton and was originally set to direct it, but career obligations would force him to step back from Muzzled. For starters, his voice acting career had grown exponentially since Brawl. In 2015, Mercer launched the Dungeons & Dragons actual play series Critical Role, where he served as the Dungeon Master over a cast of all-star voice actors. Because of his new commitments, Mercer was replaced as director for Muzzled by Sean Becker, a director for the acclaimed comedy web series The Guild.
Baby, I compare you to a kiss from the rose on the grave. Ooh, the more I get of you, the stranger it feels, yeah.
Have Diva and Jan come by at some point. We've got some other cast members coming in real soon, as well as Zach
Yep.
Grafton, who I'm asking you guys, as one's holding the fort, get him and keep him on camera.
Yes.
Oh yeah, we have to, just as a torture.
Partially because it's just fun to watch him squirm, and partially because that man is like allergic to credit and attention. And
Yeah.
you guys need to know that Zach Grafton is one of the biggest creative forces behind this project, and it's unfair that he keeps slinking off in the dark corners like, don't look at me! So ask him questions, make him feel involved, and don't let him off camera.
We will chase him with the camera if we have
Do
to.
it.
Muzzled's Kickstarter managed to raise $50,000 for a single season of 3 episodes, which were released on October 26, 2015. The release of Muzzled was soft, but generally well received. Serena Hohenstein, writing for Emerton College's student magazine, praised Muzzled, stating, "Its musical numbers are fairly short, but will be stuck in your head for days, which is fun but slightly embarrassing when you're walking around your college campus singing, 'We're princess friends, we do everything together, princess friends.'" Muzzled the musical would end on a cliffhanger, where Malthalia frees the Blackhearts from enslavement and launches her war against Serenadia.
It was just caught in the grips of time. Whereas with Brawl, we'd all been so young and energetic and just excited to do whatever. There just is a point where you like realize you're not 20 anymore, and you're like, we actually need to pay our friends who like have children and need to afford a babysitter to come to the shoot.
Muzzled accomplished something that no Zach Grafton series before it had ever achieved, and received a Streamy nomination.
And so then after Muzzled the Musical, have you ever considered doing another web series, writing another one, or?
Yeah, always considered it, but I think I wanted to, around that time, start focusing on writing books, largely because I would have all these, this is exactly what George R. R. Martin always said. He used to work in TV, and he would have all of these big ideas that they couldn't film, and that's on actual fucking TV. We have way less to work with than he did. I want it to be as big as I want it to be and not worry about any of that stuff. I realized that it was just like super unfeasible. Also, like to keep doing these huge, like big idea worlds, like that with all these big casts. Because for some reason, I'm like, just had to have a ton of characters and everything. So I decided from then on, I'd always wanted to write books anyway, aspect, and I'm still doing that. I'm trying, I'm working really hard to get this one book out. Because of School of Thrones, like I made a friend who wanted me to do some treatments for some shows to pitch to the Disney Channel. So the book that I'm writing actually began its life as a Disney Channel cartoon. It was very different, but much less adult version.
Grafton's upcoming novel is called The Girl with the Tentacle Crown, described on his Patreon as
a weird fantasy novel. On the surface, it's about a girl and a monster. A little deeper, and you find a salve that's helped me understand my own neurodivergence. It features swearing, violence, sex, and tentacles.
Tom, are you ready for this?
It's chili dog time, yeah.
She's going straight to hell, bro. Nobody should be laughing at this shit.
There Will Be Brawl has a weird, often prophetic legacy over the years. In 2012, Nintendo released the tactical role-playing game Fire Emblem Awakening, where Mercer voiced Chrom, one of the game's lead characters and a favorite among fans. For the Super Smash Bros. Series' grand return as a dual release on the Nintendo 3DS and Wii U consoles, Chrom was a widely expected addition to the roster. Mercer had even encouraged fans to be vocal about their desire for Chrom to be in Smash. But expectations were subverted in July 2014, when it was revealed that instead of Chrom himself, Chrom's daughter Lucina would be joining the Smash Bros. Roster alongside Chrom's partner Robin.
I suppose I'll get my chance another day.
Mercer did some voice work for Smash 4, as Chrom featured as an Easter egg on the Palutena's temple stage. Kyle Hebert would be the first There Will Be Brawl alumnus to voice a playable fighter in Smash Bros. When Ryu from Street Fighter was added to the roster through DLC. In 2018, Chrom got his chance.
One of my earlier career characters, his name is Chrom from Fire Emblem. That game was supposed to be the kind of the swan song end of the Fire Emblem series, which never really took off in the West. Instead, it completely had a resurgence after that game, and Chrom has since been part of many games since. And he's just been like this recurring character that I love and hold very deeply to my heart. And there was an even joking trailer that he was not going to be in the next Brawl, and Lucina was going to be it instead. And that was like, oh, so close, because it would have been really funny if I had been in the next Smash Brothers, having made a Smash Brothers fan series. And then I was brought in to do recording on a project that had a code name. Didn't know what it was. Went in to record, and when I went into the booth, they were like, all right, so you're going to be voicing Chrom from Fire Emblem in the next Smash Brothers game. And I had this kind of tunnel vision moment, of like, this is the weirdest life nerd full circle to now have done this web series, and then years later be returning to be in the actual game through happenstance. And I remember telling the producer of the game there that day, like, I did a web series, this is really weird. And it's like, oh, that's kind of wild. And one of the other people in the team were like, oh yeah, no, I watched that back in the day. I was like, what? That's crazy.
So there are people at Nintendo of America, at least, who are aware of There Will Be Brawl. There
are. I've met a few of them, and they've told me about how it got them through their college, or they were very, very much inspired by some of the darker takes that were in the series. So I'm glad there are people there that appreciated the series and don't hate me for making some of their characters do the terrible things they did in that series.
Rise, rise, my servants. Sweep over Hyrule. Eliminate this kingdom and her allies.
In February 2023, Nintendo held a Nintendo Direct presentation that ended with a new trailer for the highly anticipated The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom, where fans heard Ganondorf's new voice for the first time. The actor wasn't credited, but fans immediately pinned the voice as Mercer's. 2 months later, on April 13th, 2023, Mercer confirmed that he would be reprising his role as Ganondorf in an official capacity over 13 years after There Will Be Brawl had concluded.
Do not look away. You witness a king's revival. And the birth of his new world.
They are very different Ganondorfs, I will say. I'd be lying if I didn't say there was some inspiration and carryover there, because that, you know, it's just an evolution of parts of it. Less New Yorker, less Mafia Don in the Tears of the Kingdom, but there is some of that bloodline that carries over to it, definitely. Definitely a deeper, more regal Ganondorf in the Tears of the Kingdom. But yeah, that was absolutely wild. Absolutely wild. It's still weird when I think about it. It doesn't make any sense. I had such weird, sweet dreams of one day doing voiceover for projects that I cared about, but I never, ever would have considered the opportunity to voice Ganondorf. Are you kidding me? Like, because I was in the fan series, like, part of me was in the back of my mind being like, I'm probably blackballed from Nintendo for making this. He'll probably never work with me. And the other half of me being, I don't know how I'd ever be able to be in the right place in the right time to show my colors for the character. I mean, I pinch myself on many occasions because so many facets of these opportunities that I've somehow stumbled into don't make sense to me, but I'm very grateful. I am living my nerd life in ways I never would have ever anticipated, and I don't ever want to take that for granted.
How do you feel looking back on the series a decade and like a half later?
Wonderful. Like, very warm. Like, it really was among the best times of my life. Like, it was just so weird and so fun. Again, different, because I went from like a very unsocial lifestyle, and suddenly I was like thrust in the middle, like, of all this creativity, and it was just wild. Like, it was, I was in Narnia suddenly. Like, it was really a huge difference. And then I also remember wishing that I had made the thing shorter, and everybody could have had a little easier of a time.
Brawl was weirdly ahead of its time, but also very of the time. It's truly a time capsule of our friendships and our experiences. And I think I touched a little bit earlier on how there's people I'm still in touch with, but people who I might have lost touch with or don't see anymore. And it's so wonderful just to have that to look back on. And even looking through some of the pictures, like, oh my God, that person, I haven't talked to them in 10 years. I should look them up and see how they're doing. It's really cool to have record of those friendships and those experiences.
If a genie or like spirit or God or whatever like came down and said, you know, I'll give you $1 billion, but I'm going to take those 2 years from your life, I would say no. Those were some of the best, absolute best years that I've ever spent in my life. All different places in life than we were so many years ago, but we're all still making it. We're all still surviving, and that friendship is still there, you know. One of the best things that I got from Brawl was my wife thing. My wife is another thing, but marriage, I guess, is a thing. I met her when we were filming at the Victorian on, I think it was either episode 3 or 4, but I think it was 3. And I remember pulling into the parking lot and seeing her out of the corner of my eye. And, you know, my side of the story was I saw her and was just like, I am smitten with her. I am going to marry her. Who is this woman? I'm going to marry her. And it took a number of years to get there, but then we got married. Now we're going on, we got married in 2016. So what is that, 8 years? Yeah, we are very much in love. Marriage to my wife is the best thing that I got from Brawl. And then like all the friendships that I made along the way. Those were our streamies. The streamies that we won were friendships?
I look back on it so deeply fondly. Much like how the human psyche is built to erase trauma and only remember the good parts. No, in all seriousness, I so much love went into that web series. Like for me, but so many other people. I met so many friends through that series. People I trust immensely and love to this day. Some of the dearest people I know I found or grew closer to on that set. It is such a prominent moment in my life that I look back on them with such fondness, such deep fondness. I'm still proud of the series, even with how ragged it is. It's, especially at the beginning when I was figuring things out and didn't really know what I was doing. But I think it found an audience because it had heart, it had passion, it had a strong vision, and it had people that were willing to sell it through the story with honesty and intensity. It's the perfect example to me of passion project. It is filled to the brim with passion and respect.
And we worked with some really talented people. And there's some actors and actresses who aren't in Hollywood anymore who really were really good at what they did. Some scenes were acted really, really well. And I don't think a lot of these folks will ever know just how good it was, even though it is a silly Nintendo fan film from years ago. But I've yet to see anything come close to it, anything with that breadth and scale, with the amount of characters, the amount of people, the amount of episodes. But I'm glad to have been a part of it. I would go back and do it again in a heartbeat.
It was people working hard, loving what they did, loving the people who they were with. And I'm very grateful for it. I'm grateful for the people who were there, grateful for the memories. I'm grateful for the late nights, the lack of sleep, dinners that we'd have sitting down and talking about things, the laughs, the tears, and the camaraderie. And then once everybody left set and got home, everybody started texting and calling you. Everybody home, all right, see you tomorrow, see you in a couple hours, boom. And then it was family. And I miss that. I miss that family. I miss my Nintendo family.